call our meeting to order tonight. Renata, if you could do the roll call, please.
Gookin?
Here.
Evans?
Here.
Miller?
Here.
English?
Here.
McEvers?
Here.
Wood?
Here.
So before we rise for the invocation, we'll have a little different start to our meeting today. We'll rise for the invocation, and then October 11th was the International Day of the Girl. And so we have two Girl Scouts here today. We have Cassidy Crookham and Charlotte Crookham that are going to come up after our invocation, and they're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So I want to just mention those two young ladies, and they'll come up right after our invocation. So let's rise for the invocation, and Renata will beam our pastor in. And our pastor is Mike Slothauer, River of Life Friends Church.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council meeting. Thank you for having me. Join me in prayer. Father in heaven, we love you. We thank you for today. We thank you for those who are willing to serve. We pray, Father, for our upcoming elections. We pray for the health of our community. We pray, Father, tonight for wisdom for those who are making decisions, and that people would feel like they were heard this evening. Lord, we love you, and we thank you for the place that we get to live. It's in your name we pray. And we said, amen.
Amen. So come on up. Cassidy and Charlotte, come on up right here. And you'll be joining Council Member and Council President Woody McEvers and leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So girls, start us off. The flag is right here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, girls.
Good job.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council, for making a difference for our girls of tomorrow. Thank you.
So I don't believe we have any amendments to the agenda. We do have some public hearings. Anyone that's here that would like to comment on the public hearing, there's some sign-up sheets. Troy, the sign-up sheets over in the corner over there, so we can track those down. And before we get started on our public comments, Councilmember Wood, you have something that you'd like to read on behalf of the city?
I would. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a statement prepared by the entire council, and it speaks for itself. The Coeur d'Alene Mayor and City Council join our voices with those of elected leaders and community members throughout our state and nation to condemn acts of violence, inhumanity, and racism. In 2013, the City of Coeur d'Alene was one of the first leaders in the state to pass an anti-discrimination ordinance. We strongly encourage other cities in Idaho to adopt similar ordinances that protect the rights of all individuals. We condemn white supremacy and any groups who promote it. Racism causes persistent discrimination and disparate outcomes in many areas of life, including housing, education, employment, and criminal justice. We have deep empathy to the nationwide anger and fear that racism instills if unchecked. We value the diversity of our community and the inclusion of all voices. It's important for all of us to have the courage to stand together, unite, and understand that our differences make us stronger. We issue a strong statement of commitment to ensuring fair and impartial treatment of all residents of our city, regardless of their ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, religion, age, or socioeconomic class. We implore citizens to treat all in our community with dignity and respect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Christy.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Appreciate that so much, Christy. Can we have that entered into the record? And could it also be possible that we put that on our Facebook page and share it with social media to let everyone know how we feel?
Yes, definitely. Renata, that's part of the record.
Yes, it sure is.
And then Troy, you'll make sure that that gets posted. I just think that's an important message in this time. And I know there's a gentleman that's going to speak on behalf of some folks tonight too in the public comment portion. I just think that's really important that we as a city get that message out there so everyone knows where we're all coming from. So at this time, we'll open up the public comment, and anyone wishing to speak will have 3 minutes to speak so on city business. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, for reviewing our Keep Coeur d'Alene Neighborhoods First. we would like to request that the City Council review the Ordinance 17.08 that was voted on 3 years ago regarding short-term rental vacation homes. The impact of the short-term rentals to our neighborhood is overwhelming. First of all, the amount concentrated in the downtown area is significant. The character of residential neighborhoods is changing as homes are turned into de facto hostels or hotels, creating excessive noise and safety concerns and monopolizing available parking. One of the primary problems with the present ordinance is the number of guests that are allowed. There needs to be a clarification of the number of permitted guests specific to STRs. The 5 related or unrelated adults, the interpretation of the ordinance, according to the Deputy City Attorney, permits guests, if related, then there is no limit to the number of people that could occupy an STR as a family. Ordinances in other municipalities restrict occupancy. We feel the city has a responsibility to mitigate these impacts. We would like to see a moratorium of all new STRs for 6 months while the regulations are reviewed. When this ordinance was first passed in 2017, no one envisioned the scope or impact that STRs would have on our community. We need to revisit the rules and regulations in an effort to maintain our neighborhoods and community for all of our residents. Thank you for your concern and review of our issues.
I might just add, I think it's a great idea to review these. I mean, it's been 3 years now, almost 3
Yes.
years since it's been was
Yes.
passed, and I think it's a good idea to review that, things that work, things that don't work. Resolutions or ordinances are never perfect. They can always be tweaked. So at the end of this, I'll connect you with our city administrator, Troy Tymason, and we'll bring a group together with our planners, and we'll revisit this again.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm also here to talk about the short-term rentals and the unintended consequences of these short-term rentals. Currently on Airbnb, there are over 150 short-term rentals listed just in Coeur d'Alene. On the Home to Go website, there are over 200 individual vacation rentals listed. And these are the ones that you can verify by looking at the websites. There are hundreds of websites that enable you to access and rent these vacation rentals. And it's very difficult sometimes to nail down how many there actually are because many of these websites do not list the address. And so a lot of times you have to go by the pictures and drive through the neighborhoods and identify which homes are actually being used for vacation rentals. Sanders Beach, for example, has currently verified 43 short-term rentals in that neighborhood. For example, on Mullen Avenue, the first 7 houses, 4 of those are short-term rentals. Last year, there were only 2. On 11th, South 11th, between Mullen and Lakeshore, there are 8 short-term rentals. At the rate that these short-term rentals are expanding, we're going to see the neighborhoods of Sanders Beach, the Garden District, City Beach, Fort Grounds area is going to be turned into a sea of revolving short-term rentals and is not going to resemble a neighborhood where the citizens of Coeur d'Alene can live. And obviously the issues that come with short-term rentals often is a number of vehicles, SUVs rolling up with lots of people, and of course they're on vacation, they stay up late, there's a lot of noise, and they're not always respecting the neighborhoods that they're in and the neighbors that are around. So again, our concern is that at this time is the right time to address it. We don't want to wait until this continues and we can't get a handle on this. So if we could do a moratorium on new short-term rentals and take a look at this and do a common sense policy that would limit the number of short-term rentals and also enable us to regulate the operation of those vacation homes. And that way, the city council, which obviously the goal is to take care of the well-being of the citizens of Coeur d'Alene. And I think that we can accomplish that and still have the vibrant, wonderful city that we have without really destroying the fabric of the people who live here, work here, play here, and want to really enjoy this neighborhood and this city. Thank you very much for your
And
attention.
again, I encourage you to connect with City Administrator Tymason.
Excuse me, can I get the name for the record, please?
Yes, Betsy Cook. Betsy, thank you.
And I would
Dan?
just add that it is something we absolutely need to take a look at. Moratorium, that's probably something else. On the other hand, we need to take a look, and we need to take a look quick. I think when some people have mentioned about, unintended consequences, makes it kind of sound like, oh, we couldn't have known this was coming. But I guarantee you, people did know this was coming. That's exactly why, those in charge of, our legislature has preempted local control on many of these issues. So that's part of the bind we're in, but I'm all in favor of saying, okay, we need to see what the limits are, where do we need to draw a battle line and fight for that.
And you're
we'll
right,
keep
Dan,
after it.
the state stepped in and they made a rule that you have to allow short-term rentals, but the cities are allowed to put different guidelines and different restrictions on how they're operated within your city. So there is that portion of it. And I did look at the numbers, and when we first started out, we were at 140, then we went to 197, and then the current number didn't increase big from 2019 to 2020. It only increased 1. So the big jump the first year, but it very well could be that not everybody signed up. So
Not all are being reported, though, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Not all
Yeah.
have been licensed.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members, for hearing us and our concerns. My name's Linda Wagner, for the record. My home is actually on one street outside the city. I'm in the county. But we do have a short-term rental behind our house. So I'm here to support my friends who are dealing with it in the city and wanted to let you know some of my concerns. It sounds like you're going to do something about it, but I'm here, so I will tell you what I think. Short-term rentals, what is good about them? They do bring revenue to the city. They give a job to those who clean and maintain them. They make money for those who own them, regardless of whether the owner lives locally or somewhere else. Groups of family and friends can get together. The accommodation can be less expensive than a hotel. What's the problem with them? A neighborhood is exactly that, an area where you live, where you know the people around you, your friends, those that you can call upon for help. What happens when their short-term rental rents out? Unknown people come in your neighborhood. There's an excess of cars parked on your street. Short-term rentals attract friends from all over, each with their own vehicle. The vehicles get parked not only in front of the rental property, but in front of everybody else's home. For those living on septic systems, which is our situation, a house designed for a family of 4 or 6 suddenly has way more people staying there. I've seen 15 children and 4 adults. That's a lot of toilets flushing and showers and bathrooms. And I've seen, on occasion, a film crew up there in that short-term rental with 20 or more people. The rentals leave and the neighborhood and the neighbours are left with the repercussions. We get overflow from the septic systems and there's smells. Groups of family and friends come together to vacation, a time to live it up, doing things they would not normally do at home, which is exactly what a vacation should be. But that's the thing, one does not behave like that when you're living in your own neighbourhood. There's often hollering, rowdiness, drunkenness each night where they're being rented. Is it fair that quiet, established neighbourhoods have to put up with it? And when people get rowdy and one asks them politely to keep the noise down, their reply is belligerent and rude. So we would request that not only do a moratorium, but once it's established, the rules and regulations for them, that there is some oversight. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor Widmeyer, and good evening, everybody. I'm Evan Koch, and I'm the chair of the Kootenai County Democratic Central Committee. First things first, I'm certainly not here to point fingers at the Republicans. I'm not here to advocate for any Democratic candidate. In fact, I'm going to take my mask off so you don't have any trouble hearing me. And I'm not here to victimize anybody on this panel. I'm here to discuss a resolution that I left at your places before this meeting. And it's somewhat analogous to the proclamation that you read just a few moments ago. As you know, racism is a nonpartisan issue, and unfortunately, it's an intractable issue as well. But as you also know, Coeur d'Alene has a long and very honored history of fighting racism. Most recently, this proclamation, but previous mayors have gotten the Raoul Wallenberg Award, and we've not long ago outlawed discrimination against people of, LGBTQ people. And I thank you for that. I offer you a virtual pat on the back from a social distance. Unfortunately, we've witnessed a reemergence of racist activities in Coeur d'Alene in the last couple of months, and that's what prompted the Kootenai Democrats to compose this resolution. I won't go into the details, but Coeur d'Alene has stopped this kind of thing before, and we urge all of us to get together and stop it again now. Here's how we might do that. We might, as you just did, strengthen the existing statement on your website that says that we don't support racist activities, and rewrite it to say we condemn these activities, just as you did. So we applaud you for that. We could work together with your leadership and combine and coordinate the efforts of the various civil rights groups that are working in the county to advance human rights. We could find ways to listen, really listen, to the voices of our black citizens in Kootenai County. If we're able to do those things, we might be able to move beyond matters of mere symbolism, yard signs and that sort of stuff, and really address concrete ways in which to make Coeur d'Alene a more inviting place for everybody. We're going to take this resolution to the 15 cities throughout Kootenai County. But because Coeur d'Alene is the largest and most experienced city in North Idaho, we're going to give you the first crack at it. We hope that you can sign on to this, and we hope that you will help us to coordinate an effort to really move the agenda. I'll follow up with you in a week or so and hope to learn what your reaction to this has been. Please know that Democrats stand ready to move with you and improve life for all people living in Kootenai County. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks for your attention to this crucial and important issue.
And I just wanted to mention, you made a great point in that fighting racism is a nonpartisan issue.
That's right.
It's everybody's concern. And I like the leadership that you're stepping up and voicing that, and I think that we can bring everyone together. I'm sure that you're going to get a warm welcome, I'm hoping, at all 15 stops that you make. And we can pull this thing together, and we can always do better, but we're committed to fighting this. It's an ongoing fight, and we're committed to fighting it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet.
Others for public comment? Come on up, David.
Good evening. David Lyons. River's Edge, a tale of incompetence by the city attorney. Begin with annexation. No one has a right to annexation, but developers want it to get city sewer, water services, so the city has leverage. He called this a once
Wait a
in...
minute, David, yeah, I'm not going to have you sit here and disparage one individual, right? If you want to say the city instead of he, I want you to, you can say that. If you want to say me, you can say me.
No.
But I'm not going to allow you to be here and call out one city employee. So-
I am entitled under the First
So
Amendment.
no,
I'm
no,
entitled,
No,
sir.
I'm not going to, this is my meeting. I'm not going to allow, you can say whatever you want, but just don't mention one single person. You
I'm
mention me.
entitled to criticize a city official
If you want to say city
for
legal
his
department.
conduct as a city official.
I'm not going to allow that. I'm not going to allow you
You're
singling out one
violating
single-
my First Amendment rights, sir.
You
are.
Use me.
The Supreme Court has clearly held criticism of city officials, public officials, in their capacity as public officials is absolutely protected under the
You know
First
what?
Amendment.
I'm the mayor of this town. Criticize me. Have it come to me.
No,
Nope, have it come to me.
I don't want to criticize
Oh,
you.
I want you to. So use me. Go ahead and start.
It all lies at his door.
No, I'm not
I
going to
just
allow
want
it.
to criticize
David,
on the merits,
David,
criticize
I'm not going to allow it.
the conduct of a public official in his official
He's a public,
capacity.
it's a public employee. If you want to criticize
He's
a public,
public official.
I'm not going to allow it, David.
You're violating my First Amendment rights, sir.
I'm sorry, David, I'm not going to allow it. You criticize me,
I'm not going to criticize you.
okay? Well,
I
then,
don't criticize you for this.
but I'm not,
Criticize him.
I'm not going to allow it.
You're violating my First Amendment
Sorry,
rights.
I'm not going to allow you to do it.
Very well.
Technically,
else?
you're not violating his First Amendment rights because public comments are not a right. It's just a privilege we have at the meeting.
David, you've said,
With all due respect, when you open public comment, you create what the law calls a limited public forum, limited to the subject of city business. But it's a public forum, and my First Amendment rights absolutely apply. With
Okay.
all due respect, Councilman, I disagree. This is a
David-
limited public forum in the language of the law.
I
And
understand.
my First Amendment rights are absolute to talk civilly about anything pertaining to city business,
I'm not-
which is what I propose to do.
I'm not going to allow you to single out a certain city
You're
employee.
breaking the law, sir.
Okay, then we've got some law enforcement here. They can take me away when the meeting's over.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, Jeanette.
Next.
So first can you hear me? So first, on behalf of HRAI, I'd like to thank you for that strong support statement of human rights and anti-racism. This communication tonight is greatly needed to instill confidence where there may have been some insecurities. And I personally appreciate the extra effort that you all took to acknowledge this again. So thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff, and community members. Tomorrow is a very special day for HREI and the student community. Tomorrow is Unity Day, and Unity Day is typically held every year on either the third or fourth Wednesday of National Bullying Prevention Month in October. So why unity? More than 1 of every 5 school-aged children report being bullied, and for years our culture justified bullying with expressions such as bullying is a natural part of childhood, or some kids just deserve to be bullied, or bullying is a rite of passage. The goal of the day is to bring together youth, parents, educators, businesses, and community members across the nation to emphasize the message that bullying is not acceptable and that all students deserve to have a safe in-school experience online and in the community. So we are asking you and our community for a call to action. It is simple. Wear and share orange tomorrow as a visible representation of supportive, universal message that our society wants to prevent bullying and is united for kindness, acceptance, and inclusion. At HREI, we use several programs when it comes to bullying prevention. The materials you have before you are a small example of the 2 of these sources that our social worker volunteers have been authorized and trained to teach and share within our community and the schools. The first is from Pacer's National Bullying Prevention Center, and the second originated from the Wadsmith Center and is widely supports the Upstander model, which we even use with adults. Large poster sizes of these materials are available and distributed annually to our educators and even some homeschool moms and dads. Sessions are taught for free. at no charge to any classroom that wants to participate. So again, please join us by wearing and sharing orange tomorrow on Unity Day. We can send the unified message that we care about students' physical and emotional health and that bullying will no longer be accepted in this society.
Thank you, Jeanette. Others for public comments tonight?
We have one virtual comment.
Good evening.
Evening, City Council. Hi, Steve. So I'll try a different method this time. I was kind of a little angry last time.
Okay. Name for the record, please.
Jonathan Jordan.
Okay.
My address is 808 South Bailey Court. This is a letter I wrote for the night of June 1st, or that I wrote the night of June 1st into the morning of June 2nd for an opinion piece in the CDA Press. It went unpublished. I wrote this up and it was very forgiving, and I solemnly remembered this as a time of accountability. As a citizen of our community, I wanted to go downtown Monday night to document any events and have some medical equipment handy in case anybody needed it. My intention was making sure people had a secure place to be. Immediately upon arrival into the downtown area, all I saw were swaths of people walking up and down all the main and outlying streets and riding in the backs of trucks, all armed to the teeth. Now, we all want peace in our communities. The answer is not parading around town with guns. I watched a small business owner essentially thrown out of his own establishment by these same people who claimed to be here armed and protecting us. No one batted an eye against these thugs. The police officer who claimed to be, the police officer he counted on for help said he fit the profile of the enemy. As I showed up to, I was getting dirty looks from all these people with guns. Before I even started recording from my phone, I was already getting threatened. I tried stopping some people to shake their hands and say hello and who I was, how long I'd lived here. Nothing helped. I didn't even want to walk anywhere to document because I was already being lumped in with this imaginary Antifa in our community. I was only wearing a black shirt. I can't imagine not being able to take that off. You know, I'm not mad about not having a voice. I'm not the one who needed a voice. George Floyd and our entire country needed a voice, and my community got together to brag about their guns and threaten other members of my community. I'm not mad about you all calling me the enemy. I've been treated like a punk by everyone, it seems. I'm not even really mad at all anymore. I've been up all night waiting for gunshots and doing my fact-checking, laughing because you all fell for the biggest prank published by a white supremacist group ever, and I almost lost my life trying to see if you were all right. Who are you people? Which black bus and 6 white vans did you come in on? The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. 2 weeks ago, you expressed your offense when I said you've done nothing but encourage these extremist acts. I'm attempting to explain to you that the offense that you took then is the offense we have felt for months. I implore you to revisit the statutes I brought to your attention previously. Not all of them were on the ICAP letter or even mentioned on ICAP. And understand why I laugh when you tell me that no laws were broken. How do we trust a police force that labels you the enemy when you're the one who calls for help?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Glad you had your voice tonight. Anyone else wishing for public comments tonight? All right, we will move on to a retirement. So we have a
We have one
retirement
virtual
of
comment.
We got
Pico.
a virtual comment, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, we have a virtual comment. Renata,
Yes.
steer me to the virtual comment.
All right. Go ahead and speak off of Zoom, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Ashley Unruh, and I am a new member of the KC NAACP that has been recently established. And I'm just here to voice my support for the anti-racism resolution that was presented earlier, and just my support for the statement that you made at the beginning of the meeting. Just wanted that to be heard.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else out there, Dan?
I'm not sensing anyone.
That is it, Mr. Mayor.
All right, so now we'll get on to the retirement of Pico. Chief White, if you'd like to come up and say a couple of things about Pico and
Just bark.
Officer Nisley.
Does Pico have the COVID? With the sneezing? Well, Pico has decided to retire on us after a long and illustrious career. Let me just give you a couple stats here. Pico obtained his patrol certification in 2014. He's been working with Amy Nisley ever since. He got his narcotics detection certification in 2015, and he had a total of 1,867 deployments. That's basically anytime he's retrieving the car to go off and do something work-related. 150 of those were captures of suspects. Just over the last couple of years, he's recovered a couple pounds of marijuana, looks like close to a pound of meth, a bunch of cocaine and heroin. And then a couple interesting facts. We had at least one council member that wanted to get him a bed, one of those fluffy dog beds. But as it turns out, he eats those. Those things last about 15 minutes. And so instead we have a bag of dog food for Pico. And it's not just fluffy beds that Pico eats. Pico is eating, I'm going to tell a couple stories here. Pico's eating a chicken. He tried to eat a whole cat. He swallows his dog toys whole. He ate most of the back of a patrol car, including the weather stripping, the headrests, the rubber flooring, and a door hinge. He obviously likes to play. I guess he flings his water bowls around, and we've got some videos of him taking a sled in his patrol car to go off to work on a snowy day, but he'll be missed. And Amy is transferred to the detective division, and so Pico's going to just stay home at Amy's house from this point forward.
All right, great. Thank you. And I have a statement from the city as well, that tonight we recognize Police Canine Pico for over 6 years of service to our community. That equals about 45 years in people time, which makes him the second longest serving city employee so far, behind Councilman Ron Edinger. During his tenure, Pico has faithfully and loyally worked with his partner, Officer Amy Nisley, in effecting felony and misdemeanor arrests. Police dogs are not pets. If you try to pet one, you might learn that the hard way. But they are dedicated to their handlers, and they do dangerous work as they protect their community from crime. So I just wanted to wish Pico all the best in retirement. Thank you for all the care that you've given him. We even have a certificate of appreciation to hang right next to his, I guess he doesn't have a dog bed, but right next to wherever he lays. I imagine he lays wherever he wants to lay.
Apparently
So
he'll just eat it.
Chief, I'll hand this to you.
Thank you.
Also from the police department, we got you a shadow box with all the memorabilia from your canine years.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. So now we have a very important proclamation. Liz, if you want to come up, and I'll read the proclamation. So this is Liz Montgomery, and Liz is the Executive Director of the Northwest Infant Survival and SIDS Alliance, and this is Safe Sleep Awareness Month, which is October of 2020, and I'll just read a bit of this proclamation. Whereas sudden unexpected infant deaths is a sudden and unexpected death of an infant birth to age 1 year in which the manner and cause of death are not immediately obvious prior to the investigation. Whereas the tragedy of this can happen to any family regardless of race, ethnicity, or economic group. Whereas Northwest Infant Survival and SIDS Alliance is a statewide, not-for-profit organization headquartered in Coeur d'Alene, dedicated to providing infant safe sleep education, bereavement support services, and creating community awareness around preventing sleep-related infant deaths. And whereas during the month of October, Northwest Infant Survival and SIDS Alliance will hold special events, including Run for the Angels on Sunday, October 11th, which I'm sure occurred that, at McEwen Park, and just distribution of safe infant sleep educational pamphlets, cribs, wearable blankets to families in need, therefore providing the best opportunity for all babies in Idaho to survive and thrive. Now, therefore, I, Steve Widmeyer, Mayor of the City of Coeur d'Alene, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2020 as Safe Infant Sleep Awareness Month. Liz, thank you for being here. You have a message for us tonight?
I do have a message for you. Sudden unexpected infant death kills more children in the U.S. than opioids, guns, and suicide combined. Last year, 3,500 babies died from sudden unexpected infant death. It is the #1 cause of death of our babies aged 1 month to 12 months of age. 90% of our deaths are preventable, sleep-related deaths, due to unsafe sleep environments, such as pillows, blankets. Over half of these deaths occur while an infant sleeps with an adult. According to Idaho Vital Statistics Health District 1, which includes Kootenai, Shoshone, Bonner, Boundary, and Benoit County, has the second highest SUA death rate in the state. For every 100,000 babies born in Health District 1, 123 will die from sudden unexpected infant death, compared to our state average of 82 deaths per 100,000 live births. In Kootenai County, approximately 3 infants die from sudden unexpected infant death each year. This is proving true for 2020. I truly hope I do not have to attend another funeral of another Kootenai County baby. Good evening. I'm Liz Montgomery, Executive Director of Northwest Infant Survival and SIDS Alliance. I'm honored to be here today to witness the reading and signing of our proclamation. It's my hope to bring awareness to sudden infant death and the immediate need and vital need for safe sleep education to our Coeur d'Alene families. NISA is the only nonprofit serving Coeur d'Alene, nonprofit in Coeur d'Alene that provides safe infant sleep awareness, education, and training and bereavement support for families. We pride ourselves in spearheading this proclamation in hopes to eliminate preventable sleep-related deaths here in the Coeur d'Alene community and to bring awareness to the need for bereavement support for our families. So not only am I the director of NISA, I'm also a mother of 2 children, Holly, who is 24, and my son Mason, who will always be 5.5 months old. My son Mason died at Sacred Heart in Spokane after 18 years ago, after being put on life support due to an unsafe sleep accidental death. At that time, his death was labeled SIDS because that's all we had back then. But we know now, with better research and understanding, that our deaths are happening that are preventable sleep-related deaths. So I've dedicated my life to ensuring families do not have to endure the same experience that I have, and we can do this by education and providing resources for families, such as cribs and sleep sacks and car seats. So on behalf of myself and my board, I thank you, Mayor, and the City of Coeur d'Alene Council for your support tonight. Please remember Mason's story, which is my son, when you're making those rules and regulations for our child care centers specifically. I do want to say thank you for Coeur d'Alene, the City of Coeur d'Alene being the first city in the state of Idaho to mandate safe infant sleep practices to be followed in our licensed child care centers. So thank you for that, and thank you for taking the lead in our community, in our state. So thank you for your continued encouragement and support.
Thank you. Liz, I had this here.
Okay.
Kind of blocked in here. There you are. Thank you for being here. Okay, so we will move on to the agenda. The next item is Core Housing Code Update. Mike Beharry.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. Here tonight is an informational item. It's just like a progress report of where we are with infill housing as far as in the planning department. So we're going to go ahead and start off by just giving an overview. So we wanted to come up with a mission statement as far as what our mission was going to be. So it was to create new infill housing code that will allow additional housing units that are quality in design in areas of the city that are appropriate. A little history on infill housing in Coeur d'Alene. So we've been doing infill housing since the 1980s. Started out with cluster housing in 1988 to 2000, and then pocket housing from 2007 to 2017. Soon after that was repealed, the planning department looked at how we can do better on the ADU code, so we did ADU code development. And then we had a missing middle form in August of 2019 to get a little more information about infill housing. We brought in Opticos, and they gave a presentation at NIC, and a lot of you were there at that time. We had the ADU code amendment was adopted in September of 2019, and the core housing code development began in February of this year. The Proposed code is estimated to be a code viability of about 15 years, and a little bit of existing conditions and surrounding conditions. To the north, we have Hayden and Dalton Gardens. To the west, we got Post Falls. We got topography issues with Canfield Mountain and the lake to the south, so we have to look inward for development. So we have limited areas that can be annexed into the city. Some census data. So in 1980, we had 20,000 people in Coeur d'Alene, and by 2000, there was 34,000 people. Today, there's approximately 51,000 people by KMPO's projections. The proposed code amendment is perceived to go to 2035, and we're projected to have another 14,000 residents move into the city of Coeur d'Alene by 2035. So the current housing characteristics, we have quite a few single-family dwellings. We do that really well, but for core housing, we're going to be focusing on 3 units and above. So 3, 4, 5, 9, 10 units. So that's going to be the primary focus for this infill code. And missing middle housing, the basis for missing middle housing is for core housing. So missing middle housing is based off of core housing. And what that basically is like from the city center, we have taller buildings, more dense, and as you move away from the city center, the types of units and the density will decrease. So this is some previous examples of pocket housing, that a couple slides showing what pocket housing produced. So we had the missing middle forum at NIC with Opticos, and just a couple recap from that meeting, where there was a need for infill missing middle housing for the city. Not all neighborhoods should be designated for infill development, so we'd ensure that established neighborhoods won't be negatively impacted. Design of the units is very important, so we want to look at the quality and the design of the units. Density should decrease as you move away from the downtown core. Allow for a variety of housing types and various densities and styles within residential neighborhoods. And the units should also be house scale if they are located in a residential neighborhood. Some planning principles for livability and walkability. Livability focuses on placemaking, which involves the design of public spaces to encourage public gatherings and engagement. Walkability is vital in the livability aspect of a city, and a 5-minute walking distance is the radius a person would likely walk as a primary means of transportation for frequent trips. So we looked at best practices for infill housing and for a suitability criterion, and we wanted to preserve and protect existing historic single-family neighborhoods. We wanted to incorporate quality design of the infill housing units that increases the livability aspect, and then infill housing proximity principles. We want to locate a walkable distance to pedestrian and bike trails, walkable distance to commercial and employment centers, and a walkable distance to public transportation. And the infill housing should allow for a density decreasing as you move away from the downtown core in transect planning. So the walkability map produced this type of map. This areas in gray are the areas that were the walkable areas. So we also looked at transect planning. And what is transect planning? Usually it talks about density towards the core and higher buildings, and as you move away, you get lesser and lesser. And most transect plannings have 6 transects, but for the city of Coeur d'Alene, where you don't really have a natural area and we don't have a rural zone, so we divided up the city into 4 transect zones. This is just a general illustration of transect planning with the urban core here, and as you move away from the city center, the types of units get less and less dense. So core housing, it's walkability and the relation to the downtown. So you take the walkability plus the transect to equal the core housing area. So this will allow different units within different areas and different heights and different densities and different parking requirements. So we formed the core housing committee, and that helped us guide the core housing code. We have Kevin Jester, Shauna Clark, Josh Scher, Jeff Lemon, Dennis Cunningham, James Casper, Chad Oakland, Greta Snodgrass, Rob Orth, Tom Messina, Woody McEvers, Nick Geringer, and Nicole Kaler. So we had a wide variety of people helping give us input on the code. So a couple of items that the committee has already discussed with the planning staff is the naming and the branding. So we wanted to come up with a name that was unique, so we came up with Coeur Housing. So we kind of take ownership. It's unique to City of Coeur d'Alene. It's not just any city, any USA. So we did a mapping exercise. We talked about the transect planning areas, the livability and walkability, housing types, what are the appropriate building heights. We talked about second and third story step backs, and lot sizes. We also talked about parking requirements, design standards, what are the appropriate setbacks, open space, lot coverage, number of units, housing types, and should a survey be required. We went over all these discussion items. So core housing types, what are we talking about here? So there are 8 primary core housing types. We have triplexes, fourplexes, cottage court, tiny house court, courtyard apartment, townhouse, live-work units, multiplex smalls, and multiplex larges. So this is just an illustration of what those would look like. Triplex and a fourplex, 3 to 4 units, the live-work units, cottage court, courtyard building, tiny house court, townhouse, multiplex larges, and multiplex smalls. We also talked about design elements that were under consideration, what kind of design elements would be good to incorporate into the plan. So where we've been, we've had 5 workshops since February with the committee. And where are we going? We're going to have a public workshop with the development community here coming up in November and the public to get input on what they think is best for the city. We're going to also have another workshop with the committee in December. And we're planning a joint workshop with the City Council and Planning Commission members in January. And then hopefully Planning Commission in February, and maybe get this to City Council in early spring next year. That's all I have.
Council questions for Mike?
Just one thing. How is this, there's going to be a presentation in the spring to council to adopt the core housing code. It'll be a new code. How is this overlapping with what's happening with the comp plan?
It's in concert. We're working together with the comp plan moving forward, so we're in concert, working with Sean and Hillary and the consultants to make sure this is incorporated within the comp plan.
Any other questions for Council? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there anywhere in this plan that you're working on identifying the areas where infill will be applied?
Yes, the whole city will be applied except for some single-family neighborhoods that are historic in nature.
But isn't infill just weird-shaped lots? Or is it more?
It is more. It could be, we have a minimum lot area, so if someone had a lot and a half, or 2 lots, or 3 lots, or someone bought 4 lots and they wanted to put up infill housing, they could.
Okay. I understand the need for doing this because I was here when we went forward with this, and I know those slides of what was happening. I love the name cluster housing. That's awesome. But the other thing, the pocket housing, that was just disastrous. So I'm hoping we can do something a lot better. You got a good team there. Walkability, I think, is really fascinating because I remember we had a guy come and talk to us. It was about East Sherman, and he mentioned that the design standards for walkability are completely opposite what you do for a car. So in all the neighborhoods we've established here, we have curvy streets, which cars love, but they're terrible for walkability. And that slide you showed underscored the most walkable parts of the city are grids. So is that going to be something, or is that too large of a scale for this? I mean, to go back to grid patterns and encouraging that in development.
It's always encouraged to do grid patterns on new developments that come in.
Mm-hmm.
But the primary for the infill housing, it will not be for like putting in streets, doing a subdivision type thing. It's going to be like you said, an existing lot, existing streets. It's in the infill. It's already got existing services. So the grid system now incorporates the infill.
Is there any consideration being taken to, one of the reasons you want to walk is to go somewhere like to a store. Is there any consideration being taken to commercial within a given range of these infills?
Yes, part of that, I don't know if you saw that one slide, I had talked about commercial nodes and retail centers.
Okay.
So we designed it to be close to those centers too for walkability.
All right, thank you.
Woody?
So when we talk about infill, I think it's important, we're not talking about affordable housing.
That's correct.
They're not in the same conversation.
That's correct.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Mike? Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Move on to announcements. Any member of the council have an announcement here tonight? Amy?
Thank you. Just a couple hours ago, Panhandle Health District posted today's positive COVID cases. The number for today was 141, and this is our highest day yet, and certainly a record that we did not want to set.
Your speaker might be covered.
It's covered.
Sorry.
Kootenai Health shared some facts from our local hospital that show the impact that COVID is having on our community. Currently, we have 24 patients hospitalized with COVID-19. Of those, 7 are requiring critical care. Kootenai Health's current overall census for all patients is also very high. It's a level purple, which I just verified with them is the highest level. Since the start of the pandemic, Kootenai has conducted more than 47,000 COVID-19 tests. Kootenai Health tracks what percent of the tests it conducts are positive, and currently the average percent of positive for the past 7 days is 13.4%. This is among the highest 7-day rolling averages seen to date. As the pandemic continues, staffing challenges are a growing concern. It is more difficult to hire temporary nurses because communities across the country also need additional help. So tonight, I'm urging everyone to do their part. Maintain social distancing. I assure you, I'm not sick. I just have terrible allergies that get stuck in my throat. Right on cue. Maintain social distancing. Wash your hands frequently. Stay home when you're sick. And wear a mask when social distancing is not possible. Together, we can help support our schools reopening and the hospitals that need it the most. So thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And I study these numbers probably way more than I should every single day. I'm monitoring and looking at these numbers. We had a high week, 7 days of July 13th. We had 323 cases in Kootenai County. The first 2 days of this week, Monday and Tuesday, we've had 170 cases. So we're not doing something right. We need to pay more attention to those health protocols that Amy just reiterated. Don't get sick. Don't make others sick. Let's see if we can get through this, because we are not going, and we're all tired of it. And you've heard the word that everyone is just, they're just tired of all of the talk and all of the protocols and everything like that. But it's just vitally important. Amy, that number was 24 hospitalizations, right?
24, correct.
24. This summer, when we were at that level, they talked about putting a field hospital at the fairgrounds because they thought that we might get to that level. We might get to that level if we just be careful. Well, let's just protect ourselves, and if protect ourselves, we can protect others. It just worries me every day as to what direction our hospitals get overwhelmed. We have to build that field hospital. The field hospital, I can't imagine talk of a field hospital, you don't know what that's going to be, what the treatment you get in something like that. So anyway, I could go on, but let's just let's be careful for ourselves, and let's be careful for our fellow citizens. It's really, really important.
Mr. Mayor, may I just add 2 cents?
Yes.
I've been, as we've mentioned before, I've been working on a Wear a Mask campaign, and there's been a number of organizations involved, and it was funded by CARES Act funding that was earmarked for public service announcements by Post Falls and City of Coeur d'Alene. That campaign concluded its budget and its cycle. But I think one thing that's important to note, as we were talking about these high numbers in July, the Idaho Commerce stats came out, and we were able, by everyone paying attention and really getting our visitors to know that we weren't a mask-free zone, we were able to keep those numbers down and actually had a 1% higher numbers than we had over 2019 in tourism areas. So it can be done, and I'm really hoping that the next phase, if we need to get some messaging out, that there's groups of people who will get together and get that done, and the message will be one that affects us being able to keep our schools open and keep our hospitals working at peak performance. So thank you for your support in all of that.
Thank you, Kiki. Woody.
Oh, I don't want to follow that. Jeez, guys, I'm all depressed now. Oh, real quick, I'm on the board for Lake City Center, the old folks, where the old folks go and hang out. We're in the need for Meals on Wheels drivers, so if you guys ever want to feel something different when you take somebody food, it's a regular routine, 3 days a week. We are kind of getting a little scary. We need some drivers. It's a couple hours a week, maybe, if you want to do it regularly. Just call them at 667-4628 and just tell them Woody sent you, and you'll get to be moved up the line. They'll probably test you too, you know. Here's one. So back in the 70s, I worked at the Intrepid, which was the beach house, which was where the highway was, which is long gone. But Greg Matlich was in last week, and he was Matlich Marine, so he taught me how to do sailboats and stuff, and I worked in the restaurant at night. And why I bring that story up is because Susan Matlich, his bride, they live in Montana. She watches this on Facebook. And so I just want to say, Susan, you're in Montana. And so, hi, Susan, I wish you the best and brought back some good memories. So.
Is there not anything to do in Montana?
I don't know. It's Montana, you know. Good luck to you, Susan. Here comes winter.
Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to comment that the council meeting is a business meeting held in public, not a public meeting. I so appreciate the stance you took on not allowing basically a public personnel complaint to take place under public comment. I don't think it's appropriate at all, so I'm glad you stood your ground on that. I would, though, like to request that our clerk reach out to Mr. Lyon, because people can always submit things in writing to the mayor, and that might be a better option for him, and just submit it in writing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else have anything? I have some appointments. These are all student representatives. I want to thank all of these students for stepping up. We have Zoe Hart and Sienna Hepworth to the Arts Commission, Allison Craney and Eleanor Walsh to the Library Board, Joseph Morrison, Zoe Gephardt to the CDA TV Committee, Madeline Heaton, Emma Keith to the Child Care Commission, Max Basler, Owen Hughes to the Ped Bike Committee, Eleanor Tenbrink and Theodore Schultz to the Park and Recreation Commission. So I'd like to, if council should see to that, to have those people appointed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Wood?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of consent calendar as presented, including Resolution 20056.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Any further discussion? Roll call, please. Renata?
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yeah.
English.
Yes.
Motion carried. We'll move on to General Services Public Works. This is resolution number 20-057, approval of a contract with Harrison Dock Builders for the 3rd Street Boat Launch Replacement Project. Bill Greenwood is with us tonight. Welcome, Bill.
Good evening, everyone. How are we? Doing all right? Thank you. Keep moving it around on me. That's the wrong one. So a while back, you guys let us go after a grant, which we received. The grant we got was a WIF grant. The WIF grant is funded through voter registration, and it comes up every cycle, and so we went after replacing the launch docks, the 2 launch docks. What's the Lord doing there with my computer screen? Okay. So we went after those, and we got it, and the amount of the grant that was given was $124,007. Our match is $29,664. for the total amount to replace the 2 launch docks is $153,661. The unit that we're going to put in looks like this one. This is the one along the seawall. We did this one about 15 years ago. It's a composite deck, steel framing, and underneath are poly floats. So it looks about as good as it did the day we put it in, other than a few bull rails that a larger vessel might have busted, and we replaced those. So this is our current condition of the launch docks. There's 2 of them there that we would like to replace. You can see this is listing. These are waterlogged, and these gaps here where the joints are, it's called a dock hinge. Those are such that they're almost, they don't match up. They're supposed to be level, and so they're a tripping hazard. And so we like to get Harrison Dock on board to replace these 2 wooden docks with the dock that looks like this one.
Questions for Bill? You guys are being easy tonight. So we looking for council action?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve Resolution 202-0057, approving contract with Harrison Dock Builders for 3rd Street Boat Launch Replacement Project.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, just that we had the opportunity to see this presentation before, and clearly you've demonstrated the need, and I'm excited that you got the grant. Good work.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Monty did most of the heavy lifting on that, so kudos to him.
Bill, installation date next spring?
Yes, I gave him 120 days, and then after I went to General Services, I realized after I walked out that question arose. Yes, to answer your question, to be the spring. Depending on the water level, they may have it done, but they may not be able to float it in. Depending if they're done, they'll have to wait for the water level. But yes, it'll be ready for next year's boating season.
Okay, great.
I have a question,
Woody.
if I could. So do these work okay when the water's down, or do you have to pull them out?
We have to float them in.
Well, I meant, like, when the water gets low, though, do they just lay on the ground?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Right, so right now, that's what they do, and that's what the one along the seawall does as well. So it rests, the first section actually rests on the bottom. This piece right here, this grounds, and it sets on the bottom, this piece, and this one's still a bit afloat.
Okay.
So during low water.
Any other questions? Roll call, please, Renata.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Aye.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Bill. Moving on to resolution number 20-058, approval of the contract with Simcoe Development Group LLC for the construction of Lakeview Heights water main extension. Kyle Marine, welcome.
Thank you, council. Let me find this presentation here. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm here to present to you approval of a project to Simcoe for a new installation of a transmission line on Lakeview Heights. So a little background on Blackwell Island. So currently on Blackwell Island, we have a booster station. It's a small, older station that we inherited in about 93, I believe. This is a picture of the station. We added a generator for backup power. The issue over there is once the power's down, the way the booster station works, they're instantly out of water. They're done until we get up and running. So we have the generator installed to help with the backup power, but the building is still underpowered as size for the booster station to push water up the hill. They do not meet fire flows up on the hill. With the booster stations in there, we can make up for the customers up on the hill, but if there's ever a fire or an issue, we cannot meet fire flows. So later on, what we did with the county is we worked with the county, we installed this fire hydrant that's here, and they bring a truck in, hook to that hydrant, and bring it up to the building and hook up to these nozzles to boost the pressure up on the hill. And they can make around 500, a little over 500 gallons a minute for fire flows on the hill, which is about 500 to 600 gallons a minute short on what they would like to have up there. sorry, wrong way. This is inside the booster station here. Existing booster station has 3 pumps in here. We actually added the 3rd pump in there later on to try to meet up flows. We have so many lines that go up there that kind of go cross-country. When we have an issue with a leak, it takes us a long time to find it. So we have this lag pump in there to try to pick up those flows while we hunt that leak down. Some leaks up there can take us months to find. We've even hired companies to come in to look for those leaks, and they've had trouble finding them. As we find them, we do repair them. On the outside of the building where that line comes in to boost in, it ties into this line here through a check valve, and that's what ties into the system to boost the pressure in the hill to meet the fire flows or to try to help out with fire flows. We do not meet the fire flows up there. So what we did is, I'll jump ahead a little bit. So the existing transmission line, this is the booster station here. The existing transmission line runs up this hill. There's an existing easement up there, but it's very narrow, and there's multiple other utilities within this easement. We've had leaks within the road and up on the hillside up there to the point where we can't get up there with equipment we have. On the hillside up here, when we had a leak, we had to do a hand hole all the way down. It took several days to do the repair. Luckily, it wasn't bad enough to where it shut the mountain down. If we did, we'd have to haul truckloads of water up there. So we brought forth to council earlier this spring a proposition to acquire an easement over here from Fairmont Loop to Lakeview Drive. It's a little bit less of a steep slope. It'd be the only utilities within this easement on this hillside. And we also acquired a new spot at the bottom hill to build a new booster station in the future so we can meet those fire flows and serve our existing customers more adequately. This red dot over here represents a future tank site that is needed on the hillside for reserve of fire flows, and also if the tank or the booster station goes down, we have a supply of water up there to serve those customers so we can do those repairs. This is a multi-stage project. So the first stage is to get this transmission line in here, which is what I'm bringing you tonight. The next step would be to install a new booster station at the bottom hill, which we have in our budget to do a design this year, possible build next year or the year after, depending on time frame, and then the tank is further out into the future. In the site up there, we possibly could run into rock at the lower side here because we know there's some rock there. So we have a contingency built into the bid process to cover that if we get there. If we don't, we shouldn't need that contingency. But I'd like that there so I don't have to come back to council halfway through the project to change the numbers to hammer out all the rock that we may have to go through. So we're not sure if we'll run into rock there. And with that, I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
Council questions for Kyle? Woody?
Kyle, so when you talk about future,
yes, sir.
You planning on, we're going to be expanding on the existing?
No, what we have is we have a certain set of customers that's already there. So we inherited that system in '93, I believe. Right. So we're required to serve that system, water, pressure, quality, flow, and fire protection. We do not meet the fire protection up on the hillside. And the existing transmission line that's up there it's starting to fail. We have multiple leaks, not just on the transmission line, but in different areas up there. But the transmission line is the most critical part of the water system over there. If that goes down, we're out of water. We're dead in the water, per se, and then we'd be hauling or hiring trucks to haul water over there to serve our customers. So this is not to serve any future customers. This is just to serve our existing customers adequately.
And bring it up to fire code.
Correct.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Any other questions for Kyle? If there are no other questions, we'd be looking for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 20-058, approving a contract with Simcoe Development Group, LLC, for construction of the Lakeview Heights water main extension.
Second.
Motion in a second. Further discussion?
Well, it looks like this is something we're backed in a corner, but it still seems like, in looking at the big picture, at some point, annexation is going to be the logical question to answer, but probably not tonight. So normally, the reason people come in for annexation is the sewer, which creates more density and stuff, and I don't think the sewer's going up the mountainside there, but water is, we're kind of committed to some old school that came with the water company, about that story, so that's kind of why we're
If anything in the future did want to go over there, a developer wanted to expand that system, they'd have to do some major upgrades to the system up there, and they'd have to annex to get service for the water and sewer, I believe.
All right. If there are no other questions, roll call, please, Renata.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin, English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Kyle. Move on to other business. This is a grant award recommendation, a request for approval to enter into contract negotiations with CD Aid for the subsistence payments program using CDBG CV funds, and to direct staff to create a city utility subsistence payment program using CDBG CV funds. Chelsea, welcome.
Thank you. Okay. So this is, we're recommending two funding recommendations for CDBG CV funds tonight. One is for CD Aid for support for hospitality workers for subsistence payments for housing and utilities. And the other is for the city's utility subsistence program. So the decision point is, should City Council authorize staff to proceed with an agreement to fund CD Aid in the amount of $50,000 to provide subsistence payments for LMI hospitality workers in Coeur d'Alene, and to authorize staff to set aside $10,000 to fund the city's utility subsistence program with CDBG CV funds in response to COVID-19. So, as you know, we received $199,675 in CV funding in April, and then on September 11th, we were notified that we would be receiving another $247,124 in CDBG CV3 funds. So it's the third round of funding. And these funds are to be used to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus, and prioritize low and moderate income people. So, of the original allocation, we have allocated $101,366 for homeless sheltering support, the Meals on Wheels expanded program, a food pantry, domestic violence victim support, and child care assistance, and then also the staff administration. So we are recommending that we fund CD Aid in the amount of $50,000 and authorize staff to set aside $10,000 to fund our city utility subsistence program. If both of these projects are approved, that will still leave $38,309 from the original first round of funding. So this is just a little breakdown of the two funds and how it is allocated. So we set aside $9,935 for the admin from that first round of funds, and we have, if we fund these two projects today, that totals $151,430. So with the $38,000 from that first allocation and the community opportunity grant from the second, or well, the CV3 funds, that leaves us with $236,008. The admin fund on the third round, we can have up to 20%, and because of the amount of time that we have to spend the money, we have up to 6 years to spend it. So that leaves us kind of a long time to administer the program. So we have to expend 80% of it within 3 years, and then the total full amount within 6 years. So we have kind of a big time gap there. And this is just a slide with the projects we've already funded to date, and then the total with the two new projects also, if they're approved tonight.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Christine.
Thanks. On that last slide, I appreciate that we have that amount of time, but one of my questions when you were done was going to be, what's the turnaround time? How quickly can we help people? I mean, we clearly don't want to drag this out for 6 years. So what's the average turnaround time when someone makes a request?
It's been about a month by the time they finish the application and we bring it to council and approve it. So It could be quicker than that, I think, if it was a extreme emergency.
Thank you.
So Chelsea, the amount of grant that you're proposing to go to the CD aid, so that $58,000 will be transferred to them. Then they are the decision makers of how that funding goes out, right? Is that how that works?
Right, so they have their parameters that they've applied for, so they're asking for housing, so that would be rent and mortgage assistance, utility assistance, and then transportation costs.
And then are you required then to get proof from that organization that your $50,000 was spent in that manner?
Yes.
And then to back up on Christie's question, is it, if someone applies, and these are people in direct need, they apply to that CDA aid, do you know about how that turnaround time is?
I don't know exactly what their turnaround time is, so they don't pay, they pay like they would pay a landlord directly, so it's direct payments to the provider, so I'm not sure exactly what their turnaround time is.
So whether it be, if it's rent or utilities or something like that, it's a direct pay out of the CDA aid organization to them?
Right, so we know it goes exactly to what it's supposed to go to.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And if I could,
Dan.
I would add a little information by way of disclosure. My wife is on the board of CEAID and is the treasurer. It's volunteer, but I can attest that they are very speedy. They have a very comprehensive process for the folks coming in and checking things out, but then they and they have kind of a whole herd of volunteers, and then, man, if they need to run some gift cards out, and they've already been out once today, well, we'll go again, or it's got to be there before 10 tomorrow morning at the bank or something. So there's a whole network of things. So it's, it's speedy.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So the performance analysis on this, it's COVID-19 related support for CDA hospitality workers. So it's financial support for individuals and families who work in the hospitality industry for housing, utilities, and transportation. So the transportation also includes car repairs so people can continue to go to work. And then the city utility subsistence program is to provide assistance for city water and sewer expenses. And both fall under the CDBG national objective for benefiting low and moderate income people. And the activity code is 05Q, subsistence payments. So we have the flexibility to pay up to 6 months of back rental or utility payments. So CD8 is requesting $50,000 to provide their subsistence payments. So they are expecting to assist 69 individuals and families per month who are experiencing hardship as a result of COVID-19. And then historically they are processing 2 to 3 referrals a week, but since the onset of COVID-19 that's increased to 10 to 15 a week. So they're expecting to benefit up to 55 hospitality workers as well as up to 30 dependent children. And that allows them to expand their existing program by 100%. It also, they've budgeted in to hire a part-time care coordinator for 10 hours a week for 6 months, because right now they just work on volunteers, so this will help them have someone dedicated to process the applications. And then they have a small budget allowable for marketing materials, social media campaigning, and web content creation. So just a few facts. There's an estimated 7,000 hospitality workers in Coeur d'Alene, and 83% of those don't have health care through their employers, and 79% do not have paid sick leave. And most of these workers fall into the low income and ALICE population. So that means they make too much money to qualify for most government assistance programs, but not enough to meet their basic needs. So more families are struggling to make ends meet with this disruption. And then some of the other impacts of COVID-19 is obviously loss and reduction of employment. And then the lost wage assistance under the unemployment benefits has been reduced. So that extra bonus payment that people were getting on unemployment is going away. So that will affect everyone's income. And then our city population is comprised of 41% of that Alice population. So that's a big population struggling because they just don't make enough money. And those people typically don't ask for help when they need it either. So as for the city utility subsistence, as of October 14th, we had over 300 city utility customers with delinquent water bills, adding up to about $46,000 in past due payments. So our city's utility subsistence program would provide emergency assistance for city water and sewer expenses to individuals and families directly affected by COVID-19. So if that program is approved, we would send out notification of the program to the delinquent customers and share the information on social media and through our CDBG stakeholder list to get the word out that it's an available program. And they would be required to qualify as LMI and have been impacted directly by COVID-19 to qualify for the assistance. So then depending on the demand, we may come back and ask for more money if we find it's a big need in that community. So our decision point is City Council should authorize staff to proceed with an agreement to fund CD aid in the amount of $50,000 to provide subsistence payments for LMI hospitality industry individuals and families in Coeur d'Alene, and to authorize staff to set aside $10,000 to fund the city's utility subsistence program with CDBG CV funds in response to COVID-19. And with that,
Council questions for Chelsea? Woody?
So Chelsea, this is sort of a new CBDG category that we haven't been here before.
right, the CV funds.
Right.
So it's directly COVID-related expenses. So it's used to prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID specifically.
So in the future, will this have a holding place, you think? Whether, when COVID's gone, these LMI people are still there, still.
So the CDBG funds we get already serves that population anyway. So
Okay.
this is just in addition to help that same population with COVID-related needs.
And then the part on the helping with the city utilities, that's new
Mhm.
in COVID, right?
That would be, they would have to demonstrate that they were directly affected by COVID, layoff, things like that, job loss. So that and be LMI.
So the
so-
46,000 that hasn't been paid isn't necessarily COVID people not paying.
Right, that's everyone that's not paying, so a small percentage of those will probably qualify. We're not really sure yet, so we don't have a clear idea of who will qualify yet.
So this is the first time around for CD aid, correct?
Yes.
First time they've put their face to
Yes.
asking for CBD. Do you see them becoming part of the regular CBDG grants once COVID goes by,
It's possible because that need is always kind of there.
and they manage it?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Other questions? Kiki?
Just one. So there's still 38,300 something remaining. Do you have a sense of other organizations that are going to need more than that or come back to you for more than that as we go into this winter season?
Yeah, we have a few, the Boys and Girls Club possibly, they've had to add more staff because of the school adjusted schedule, those kind of things. So, and we don't really know what the winter's going to look like, but people, the tourism industry is kind of falling off during the winter, so there's probably going to be some more needs. So there's that 38,000 plus the 199 or 197 from the new funds. So we
Okay.
have a total of 236,000, a little over
this-
that, remaining after we fund these two.
Okay, so you are kind of planning ahead for what's happening in the future, in the winter to
Right,
stretch
so,
it out.
and I think the priorities are housing, food, utilities, childcare.
Okay.
Any other questions? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have a question for you. Maybe one will come up. But, well, actually, here's a question. So the highest we've given any of these organizations is the Safe Passage, 26,000.
Mhm.
And then St. Vinny's, who originally asked for a lot more, we gave them 24,000. These guys are asking 50,000,
Mhm.
which would be the biggest chunk of the pie. And it's so big, you said that this would help like 55 people.
Yeah, so they can pay for up to 6 months of past due payments, so it's to keep them from becoming homeless. Typically, it's three months, but HUD has extended it to 6 months because of COVID. I have a slide with, this is their budget. So they're asking for 36,000 of that to support 1 month of utilities and rent for 18 to 20 workers, and then $3,000 for car repairs and transportation costs. And then the care coordinator is $5,000, and that's for 6 months, 10 hours a week. And then $1,000 for media, printing, advertising, and the web content.
Pretty spendy. Of course, it'd be a lot easier if they just paid them a nice wage.
Hey. You want to pay for a burger? $25.
Yeah, but that's me paying for a burger as opposed to the taxpayer paying all this.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, I'm a little concerned because it's so big, and I know originally, so far we've given out 6 of these things. And we were told originally there were like a dozen people who applied. Now, I don't know if they're still interested or anything. You just mentioned Boys and Girls Club may come back.
They may
Some
come
of these
back.
other, St. Vinny's may come back, depending on what happens. If we committed a lower amount to this now, could they come back and ask for more if the need happens? Or is this like, we need this now desperately?
They could come back and request more, and we could either amend it or do a second request.
And then going to the second item, the city utility subsistence funding, which I think is an awesome idea. I mean, that's one of the ways we can help because we're the government. And it looks like 10,000 would cover it, or are there more people? Could that benefit from an increase in funding?
It's kind of an unknown, and it's also unknown what's going to happen during the winter, so we could have people fall behind again in the winter if they're unemployed and things, if they become sick and they can't work.
How do we know that?
We don't know it.
Okay.
It's kind of an unknown, so that's why we asked for the 10,000 to cover what we think might be the initial amount, and some of these people are behind 3 to 6 months. So we only pulled the report from April to now, so that's what we're looking at.
And then you said there's some more COVID bucks somewhere, so that on the one chart I'm looking at, the staff report said that the amount of funds left to spend, if awarded, was 38,000, but you just said
From
there
the
was
first round of funding.
the first round, so there's more coming.
Right, so we have the next presentation, we'll go over that, but it's an additional $247,000 coming.
Smokes.
So even if we hold back the 20% for the admin funds, that leaves us with about $236,000.
Do we have to spend this?
No.
Okay. What happens if we don't?
It just goes back to HUD.
Okay. Thanks.
Benefits the state of Washington.
That was always the argument, is if we don't spend it, someone else will spend it, and it's like, but we don't have to spend it. I'd be more in favor, Mr. Mayor, of taking the amounts and like we did with St. Vinny's and some of these others, and holding back, just so we have that in case the need increases in the winter. I would hate to happen if we had like the 5th or 6th wave, whatever we're on, and all of a sudden we had a bigger need, and then we had no more COVID bucks.
I was going to
That's
just
not
add,
COVID, right? CBD money,
This is COVID related.
out of CBD. Okay.
It's in addition, so it's all lumped into one fund, but these funds have to be COVID related needs.
And the new
So they
money
have-
coming is the same way, COVID related? Okay,
Mhm.
got
So they've had 3 rounds of funding. The new money is the 3rd round. We didn't get any from the 2nd round.
So I see your point, Dan, on the 36,000 serving 1 month for 18 to 20 workers. I mean, that's, what's a $2,000 in 1 month? I guess, in my opinion, and I may not even get to vote, so I'd like to see that be more people.
Yeah.
Instead of 18 to 20 workers, that it would serve more people. But then I don't know what the individual need is out there. They know better.
I think it will depend also if they're paying for 1 month or 3 months, or how far behind some of these people are or become. So they're running this program for 6 months.
And this is their first try. This is their first round trying it, going through this kind of money. We haven't given them CDA, we haven't given them money in the past.
We haven't.
Mr. Mayor, another question, if I could. Are these agencies or these nonprofits required to report back to us to say that they've actually done this? That, I mean, that 36,000 did, in fact, go to help 18 people?
Yeah, we would, they would submit invoices, and then we reimburse them.
Oh, okay.
So, or we pay them directly, and then they pay the vendors directly. So they report back what they've spent with the receipts, and also they report how many people were helped during that period. So usually these ones are doing a once-a-month reporting.
Okay.
So Christie, and then we'll come back to Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I guess, when we hear about what the Alice, you called it the Alice population, did you say 41%? That's a lot for our community. And then the mayor would know what the average rent is. I don't. I honestly don't.
Gotten high.
My mortgage payment's high, but I don't know about the rent. If you have someone who's 3 months behind, that 36,000 is not going to go very far. So I guess the 18 to 20 workers doesn't surprise me. It's not a lot of money.
Yeah, I just saw it says supports for 1 month, but it's not necessarily supports 1 month worth of rent. It supports.
It could be rent and utilities. So I don't know how that, it's probably closer to the higher number. If they're averaging or kind of expecting that the average rent is about $1,000 for that population.
Whoever they're
plus
helping,
utilities, and if they're behind 3 months or more on utilities.
whoever you're helping needs it, right? I mean, there's a definite need out there.
I think Dan and I were kind of going down the same road with looking at, this is, if these are hospitality workers and we're just coming off the best part of the season, we've got a long winter ahead.
Right.
And so trying to look at, are we projecting out if this, or do we have things in place to say, if we go ahead and do this big, lump sum to them right now, are we going to run out before they have the ability to reassess and redistribute it to keep everybody whole until the next season? So I think that was kind of my concern too. And I know nobody has a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen with COVID either. So, but it was kind of the same feeling of, are we front loading this, or are they going to be, they're behind right now, so they're going to be behind in January. So how?
Right, so they could possibly catch up now and then still be behind
by spring.
Right. And need another round. So their policy has typically been they only help for 1 month. HUD allows us to help for up to 6 months, so I don't know if they would
extend that.
Make that their policy as well.
Okay.
So it seems like these guys are trying to do this thing with food service workers, everything from McDonald's to the floating restaurant, the hotel. They've done fundraisers. They try and help people. I'm just wondering, this is kind of their first round in this world. It's COVID right now, but CDBG is the big one that we take care of a lot of different people regularly, and that's pretty much every year. You fix sidewalks, you do things for old people, all kinds of different things. This might be a start. And then what she's saying is that there's more money coming. So maybe they're going to learn at the same rate, since they're the only ones kind of reaching out to those folks, and we all eat out. So I'm just thinking maybe, give them a shot, let's see what they can do. They're learning too, is what my thought is. All of a sudden, they actually get some money. So it might be a good place to start for them, since the numbers are solid. They can't do anything weird with the money. They have to show everything to get there. And they get their points and they move up the ladder with like St. Vinny's and the Boys and Girls Club. Pretty soon they're one of them and can kind of help keep people going. There's more to it, I think, than just COVID. COVID is our excuse right now for things, but that LMI thing is the norm. It's not just because of COVID, so, I'm going to support it just because I think it's worth the try. I don't like giving money to people that you're not sure about, but this is kind of opening up a new place we haven't been before, in my mind, and you're just dealing with it. Thank you.
Dan.
Just one more timing question. For the second round, the 200 and something that's coming and they're going to talk about, what's the earliest that could be available?
Well, so we haven't received the funding. We have to submit and apply for the funding, so we haven't received it yet. But usually what we do anyway is we spend the money and get reimbursed.
Any other questions? If no other questions, we'll be looking for council action.
Oh, is public testimony?
No, that's next one.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be willing to entertain, if anyone wants to go there, a lower amount, say to go to 25 instead of the 50, and hopefully save some of that money, and they can come back later if they need it. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I thought I'd throw that out there.
So Dan, your motion is to approve 25,000 for CD aid and the
then
10,000 for the utility.
I think the 10 is good. I'd like to increase the 10, but I think Chelsea has shown that the numbers are good for 10, I think.
So that's the motion that we have. Do we have a second to that motion?
Well, I would second it for discussion. I'm not going to vote that way, but I'll second it for further discussion.
Okay, so we do have a second. Further discussion.
No, I just wanted to see if anyone else wanted to go to 25 instead of 50. I was not going to push that, other than I do have, reservations and concerns about this running out, especially with the winter coming up, and we don't know what's coming up regarding, people being laid off. And then I assume there's probably some more nonprofits out there that may be interested in applying themselves, and therefore I don't want to say, well, we're done. So that was my thought.
Dan, I think, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
I was just going to say, just wanted to get how the other council members
Sure.
think about that.
I kind of started down that road, and I'm kind of feeling a lot like that, but I think right now, this money is going to go to bills that are already behind. So by reducing the amount, we're going to reduce the number of people or the number of months that we can catch some of these people up. And all that's going to do is delay the inevitable, that they're going to be behind again. And so that if they come back, that's great. So what we're doing, and I was kind of going down that road of maybe a reduced amount to try to spread it out over the season, the winter season. But then the reality is, if this CDA group, and this group is it's a pretty large group of volunteers and a pretty well-connected group. And I'm thinking, all it's going to do is they're going to be behind by spring. And so if we can catch them up now and they have an opportunity to, try to eke through the winter, maybe they'll still be employed by spring. So if we reduce that, I don't know.
I think it might also help because people have been employed through the summer, and now they might lose their jobs or their hours might be reduced because of winter. So they might not be behind yet, but they will be in a month or two, or start to fall or have a gap there. So that might be part of the consideration.
And I was looking
also.
at trying to have us dictate how to spread it out, but I think the reality is that group needs to figure out how to spread it out, because we're just delaying the inevitable by shorting the request. So that's kind of my thought with it.
And they did state that they want to help as many people as possible, so they're not really looking at funding, 6 months of somebody versus one person, spreading it out further and making it go as far as it can for as many people as possible.
Mr. Mayor, Kiki makes a good point. I will withdraw my motion.
Christie, did you have something?
No, I agreed with Kiki's comments. Thank you.
Well, then I'd make a motion that we approve the grant award recommendation request for approval to enter into contract negotiations with CD Aid for the subsistence payments program using CDBG CV funds, and to direct staff to create a city utility subsistence payment program using CDBG CV funds.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. So now we'll move on to our public hearings. This is a legislative hearing. This is a CDBG 2019 Consolidated Annual Performance Report and a substantial amendment to the 2019 Annual Action Plan for CDBG CV3 funds in the amount of $247,124. Chelsea, you have the stage again.
We just call that block grant.
I don't know what's going on there. Oops. Wrong one. What's happening? Okay. Got it. So this is public hearing for the 2019 CAPER and the annual action plan substantial amendment for the CDBG CV3 funds we've just been talking about. So our CDBG history is, the CDBG is a grant from HUD to support low to moderate income residents through specific allowable activities. So these projects usually support LMI housing, but can include public facility improvements and public service projects. So we first became eligible to receive funds in 2007, and we have had 12 plan years to date, totaling about $3.6 million in awarded funds, with $3.5 million allocated towards projects in that time period. So just some key terms. LMI is low to moderate income, and so the HUD designation of LMI is they take the median income and then take a percentage of that income to determine what the LMI is. And so for 2019, which is the year we're talking about here, is the low income, very low income, and extremely low income. Those amounts are there. So that would be the income caps for those categories. So the way we select our activities every year, they have to meet a national objective and be HUD approved activities. So national objectives include benefiting low to moderate income people, aiding in the prevention of slum and blight, or meet an urgent need. So it's one of the three. And then the activities we choose have to meet the annual action plan and consolidated plan goals. So, and then when we choose activities to fund, we have to consider our capacity of our staffing, the size of our community, the amount of the allocation, and the capacity of the subrecipients to carry out that activity. So here's our consolidated 5-year plan goals. We have 6 of them. To increase the supply of affordable for sale and rental housing, improve city sidewalks to make them more accessible for people with disabilities, continue with neighborhood revitalization efforts, so that's our MRAP program, the housing rehabilitation, expand higher paying employment opportunities for residents through economic development, and then offer public service program assistance. So our plan year is April 1st through March 31st, so the things that you're going to see now are just things that happen through March 31st. So this is kind of a breakdown of our funding. We have an annual grant for Lake City Center for their Meals on Wheels program of $5,000. We allocated $14,600 for the sidewalk project for the 21st Street and Sherman project. That was slated to begin in summer of 2020, and it is complete now, but at the end of our plan year, it wasn't. So we allocated $57,149 to the MRAP program, so we rehabbed 16 homes with that money, and then $202,892 for the community opportunity grants, which include public service and public facilities, and then $50,174 for administration, advertising, travel, training, and that gave us a total grant of $329,815. So some of what we accomplished, we had the $202,892 in community opportunity grants. We completed in 2019 two projects from 2017 grant money, so they were funded with 2017 but completed in 2019, and then two from 2018 as well. We met our goals for neighborhood revitalization, sidewalk improvements in the planning phase, and then public services. So the three goals we didn't fund were an increasing affordable housing and economic development, and we're still looking for partners to help us complete those goals. So here's some of the grants that we funded. The Lake City Center for their ADA restroom rehab, St. Vincent's for their HVAC replacement project, and then the kindergarten boot camp through United Way. They decided to withdraw that request because of COVID-19, and they're going to revisit that one in 2021. So they had 16 homes rehabilitated through the Emergency Minor Home Repair Program. Those projects include things like roofs and heating systems and bathroom remodels for ADA compliance and electrical and plumbing projects. Here's a few pictures of before and afters. So you can see kind of what we did with some of that money. So some roofing, some bathroom rehabs, water abatement, and furnace replacements. And then Lake City Center gets their annual grant of $5,000 for Meals on Wheels. They serve over 67 seniors a month who are homebound or incapacitated due to disability. So moving on to the annual action plan amendment. This is for the CDBG CV3 funds. September 11th, we were notified we'll be receiving that $247,124 in CDBG CV3 funding in addition to the funding we received in April. So our total CDBG CV funds is $446,799. So all the CDBG CV funds are for urgent needs and to serve the low income and low to moderate income individuals. So they require us to do a substantial amendment to the action plan and hold a public hearing. So here's kind of the breakdown of the money so 20% cap on the administrative funds, and the rest would go into community opportunity grants. And because of the amount of time that we have to spend the money and the kind of unknown nature of how long this kind of could last, and we only have one person dedicated to administering these funds, we want to keep that 20% in the admin funds for now. If we don't spend it, we can always move it into the community opportunity category. So here's the total CDBG CV funding, and the total amount in the community opportunity grants is that $387,439. So again, here are some of the projects all of the projects we funded, including the CD aid one and the utility payment one we talked about earlier tonight. And so that leaves us with $262,153 to still administer if we keep that 20% in the admin funds. So, to date, we have only had one public comment from Larry Riley of the St. Vincent de Paul, and he just asked us to edit his program information under section CR 25, and that's been updated on the posted CAPER, or annual action plan that's posted on our website. So just the two sections under his ESG tracking and categories and the Continue of Care grant sections. So we're just looking to take public comment and approve the submittal of both these documents to HUD for official review.
Questions of council for Chelsea? All right, thank you. We will open up the public testimony portion of this. I don't have anyone signed in electronically, or I do not have anyone on the list. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to give public testimony on this topic? Not seeing any, we will close the public testimony portion of that and look for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the Community Development Block Grant 2019 Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report and a substantial amendment to the 2019 Annual Action for the CDBG CV3 funds in the amount of $247,124.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to our next public hearing. This is a quasi judicial hearing. ZC 420, a proposed zone change for 3520 North 15th from R8 to R17. The applicant, Northwest Solutions Investment Group. Quasi judicial hearing requires me to ask if any member of the council has a conflict of interest. No conflict of interests noted. And we will have Mike Beharry for the staff report.
Okay, it looks like it was accidentally deleted, so I have to go in, get it out of the presentation folder. All right, there we go.
You sure?
This is a public hearing for item ZZ 4-20, application by Northwest Solutions Investment Group LLC, represented by Connie Kruger with Stonehenge Development and Government, requesting a zone change from R8 to R17 zoning on property that is located at 3520 North 15th Street. Legal notice is published in the Coeur Press on October 3rd, 2020, and all other required notifications have been made. Here's a location map indicating where this property is located. This is 15th Street. Here's a close-up aerial photograph of the property. See, it's highlighted here in red. This property was developed in 1993 under the cluster housing ordinance, and that ordinance has since been repealed. So it's a legal non-conforming status, and the applicant has indicated the primary reason for the zone change is for financing purposes. There's a bird's eye view of the property looking north. There are 4 findings that must be met in order for a zone change to be approved. Finding B8 through B11. We'll start off with finding B8, that this proposal is or is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan indicates this area in the northeast prairie, and it's in the stable established area. And these areas are where the character of the neighborhoods have largely been established and in general should be maintained. The street network, the number of buildings, lots, and the general land uses are not expected to change greatly within the planning period. Next slide is comprehensive goals and objectives. The full list is on page 5 and 6 of the staff report. Go over a couple here: community design, efficiency, neighborhoods, capital improvements, and city services. The next finding is finding B9, that public facilities and utilities are or are not available and adequate for the proposed use. This application has been routed through the city departments, and each department has indicated that there are adequate public facilities and public utilities available to serve the proposed request. The next finding is finding B10, that the physical characteristics of the site do or do not make it suitable for the request at this time. The site is generally flat with a slight drop in elevation toward the southwest part of the property. There are no topographical or physical constraints that would make the subject property unsuitable to change the zoning from R8 to R17. Here's the topographic map indicating the slope on the property sloping towards the southwest. Here are some site photos of the property. This is looking north along 15th Street. This is on the southwest corner looking northwest. This is on the center of the property looking north. This is on the center of the property looking west. And this is on the center of the property looking east. The last finding is finding B11, that the proposal would or would not adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood with regard to traffic, neighborhood character, and/or existing land uses. The city engineers indicated that there is no, that the applicant states there's no changes are planned for the property. However, if in the future the property is redeveloped to maximum density, traffic could double. But considering the size of the subject property, the increase in traffic would be negligible when compared to the total traffic on 15th Street, which exceeds 9,500 trips daily. The Streets and Energy Department has no objection to the zone change as proposed. Here's a zoning map indicating the surrounding zone. You got R8 to the north, R8 to the east, R12 to the south, and Ag Suburban in the county to the west. Proposed R17 zoning district is intended as a medium high-density residential district that permits a mix of housing types. Permits are single-family, duplex, and multifamily housing. This district is established in those areas that are not suitable for lower density residential due to proximity to more intense types of land uses, and appropriate as a transition between low-density residential and commercial districts, or as a buffer between arterial streets and low-density residential districts. The following list is a list of the principal uses that are permitted in the R17 district. The full list is on page 13 and 14 of the staff report. As you can see, you can do single-family housing in the R17, duplex housing, and also multifamily housing. Here's a land use map showing the existing land uses that surround the property. You got multifamily to the north along with single-family. You got single-family to the west, duplex housing to the south, and mobile homes to the east. Some zone changes in the vicinity. In 1982, where there was a zone change from R8 to R3, and in 1982, there was R12 to C17, and R12 to R8 PUD in 1992. The decision point tonight before you is provide a decision regarding the proposed zone change from R8 to R17 on approximately 4.26 acres. Council will need to consider this request and make appropriate findings to approve, deny, or deny without prejudice. Stand for any questions you may have, and the applicant's also here to present after I'm.
Dan. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mike, I don't know if you can answer this. You said that this development, nice slide, thank you for having that one up there, was put in under the cluster housing. So do you know anything about cluster housing that would explain why it's in this configuration? I mean, I think there's a large swale in the southwest corner of the property, but there looks like there's a big chunk of green there too. Was that part of cluster housing?
I think that's just part of the swale that was required to detain the water on the property as far as an engineering requirement at that time. It was allowed as under the R8 to do multifamily for cluster housing.
What is the actual density of this property right now?
There's 33 units on it. And if approved to R17, it'd go to 72 units.
So it's 2 acres?
It's 4.36 acres.
4.36 acres.
4.26, sorry, there, it's at the top.
4.26 acres, and you said there's 32 units on it?
33.
33 units. And then how much could they go to? They could double that if they went to?
Yes.
And we'll ask the applicant the question about if they're planning on doing that. Thank you.
Okay.
Woody?
I have us actually on the same pages.
Questions for
Thank you.
Mike? All right. Thank you. We will open up the public testimony portion of this hearing. And we have two, let me get this right, the right one here. Okay, here we go. So Connie Kruger wishes to testify. Come on up, Connie. I believe Renata would like to swear you in, Connie.
Hi. Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a presentation, so let me see if I can actually pull it up here. Thank you. As Mike has mentioned, my name is Connie Kruger, and I'm here representing the property owner, which is Northwest Solutions Investment Group. And one of the principals involved with Northwest Solutions is Brenny Ross. Northwest Solutions owns a variety of properties in the area. Many of them are multifamily, similar to what we're talking about tonight. All very nicely maintained, provide for great housing opportunities for people living here in Coeur d'Alene. These are the topics that I'll be covering. Looks like there are a lot of them, but I'm going to be moving through them pretty quickly. Some of this information you've already received in the staff report, but I'm just getting on in case it hasn't been addressed. So we have discussed the location of the property. This is located east of US Highway 95 and north of I-90, and this is located directly on the east side of North 15th Street. This is the historic Fruitdale subdivision, Tract 11, and the property is 4.263 acres in size. And you can just kind of see here a regional map and then also a little bit of close-up of one of the fourplex units that we have. The proposal tonight is to rezone the property from R8 to R17. And with this, it's very important to look at what the districts are intended for. So the current zone district is intended as a residential area to allow for a mixture of housing types at a density of not greater than 8 units per gross acre. So we're aware that we already exceed that gross acreage limitation. And the R17 district, which is what we're requesting, allows for that medium to high density residential district with, again, a mixture of housing types at a density of not greater than 17 units per gross acre. There are 3 circumstances which we believe justify the amendment. The first is that this is a nonconformity, and it has been difficult for the owner to refinance this using conventional refinancing. The flip side of that is also that when you have a nonconformity under the code, if they're destroyed, typically in most codes it's by over 50%, you're unable to reconstruct the same type of stock on the parcel. So that would be a concern for the owner. This is also a transitioning area on a major collector, and we'll talk a little bit tonight about the surrounding area. A lot of what the staff showed you was the immediate vicinity adjacent to the property, but we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on 15th Street. And then, as always, when there's a rezone, there's a concern is the infrastructure available to serve the potential that rezone will allow. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Tonight, discussing the non-conforming status, this property consists of triplex and fourplex buildings. And again, this is a very nicely maintained facility, very clean, offers good quality of life for the residents, and provides essential affordable housing. I've included a table to the right, and this table shows you 3 different zoning districts. And the reason that I have included the R12 district is, as you look at the density that we have, you may think, well, why are you going from an R8 to an R17? And the reason why is if you take a look at the R12, the permitted uses only allow for duplex housing and single-family detached. And so for us to be able to reconstruct the same housing stock that we currently have, the R17 allows for the multifamily structures that we have, which are 3, 4, and more units. So the owner's primary concern is financing reconstructability, but we do recognize that with a R17 zone designation, in the future it would allow for that higher density, so this is part of why we want to address some of the existing infrastructure and conditions. The other thing to note that's very important when reconstructing multifamily structures on an existing lot is that in many zoning codes, when you have something like an R8 or R12, it might require that you place that multifamily building on separate lots. And so again, as you've seen from our configuration, we have several different buildings that are all located on one parent parcel. As soon as you start to subdivide, you get into access issues, public roads, right-of-ways, different things like that, that could also be a hindrance to redeveloping them. The map on the left is a map from CAMPO, and this is a functional classification map. And this is zoomed in on the area that we're talking about. And you can see with the kind of the magenta color that this is actually indicating that 15th Street is a major collector. And as I'm sure you're all aware of, working with the city for so many years, major collectors are intended to carry a higher volume of traffic. They also collect traffic from other local access roads and from multifamily drives similar to what we see here. So if you look at this, I have 6 little numbers that are there, and those are some properties within this corridor that I'd like to talk to you about a little bit. So the 6 properties are here. There are many more examples in this area, and as I did a field assessment, there were really so many that it was kind of hard to wrap your mind around how many were out there. But these are some examples to take a look at that are in the vicinity of our property there along 15th Street. And the first is Breckenridge Estates. Breckenridge Estates is also owned by this owner. And this is 34 units on nearly 10 acres, and the zoning is, on 3.5 acres. And that equates to about 10 dwelling units per acre, and the zoning for that property is R8. We also have Hattrick Lane, which has 8 units on just a little bit over 1/2 an acre, and this comes out to nearly 12 dwelling units per acre. The zoning is R12. Walker's Glen, we have 7 units with a little bit more than 1/2 an acre, so with that we come out to 10 dwelling units per acre. Jolie Ann Court, which has 13 units on a little bit less than 1 acre, which comes out to 13.4 dwelling units per acre. Monte Vista Senior Living, which is 40 units on nearly 3 acres, which comes out to 13.65 dwelling units per acre. And Aspen Home and Development LLC, 20 units on a little bit more than 1 acre, which is nearly 17 dwelling units per acre. So again, looking in the 15th Street vicinity, we can see that where these 6 properties are stationed relative to that. And again, there are other examples, but these were just the ones that were, kind of fairly easy to go in, photograph, and pull to provide. I apologize for the text on this. I know it's a little bit small, but this slide is here to address the infrastructure in the area. You see here a photo of 15th Street. We've talked about 15th Street as a major collector. This has an asphalt surface width with curb gutter and stormwater systems that are in place. There's surrounding access to this property from I-90, Best Avenue, Kathleen Avenue, and Lunsford Avenue. And we have major interchanges within 1 mile of the property. And these are located at 4th and I-90, 15th Street and I-90. A high-density project in this area would serve the surrounding community, and we have water, sewer, and hydrant systems that are currently in place. The infrastructure is adequate to serve the current use. We've seen the comments that have come from the public works and the engineering departments. And any future infrastructure needs would be addressed at the time of future redevelopment. And there is no redevelopment plan pending at this time. So again, engineering, streets, utility, and fire department did not express concerns with the rezone. To address the prior question on the green area, it is dedicated to a stormwater system. It's an interesting system as you go out and take a look at it. It's much larger than anything that we currently see. And it's sloped up the property, so there are actually some pipes that outlet uphill and come down to the lower portion of the property, but it is quite large. And I have talked a little bit to the city engineer about the sizing of that and if that would be required under today's standards, and they've indicated that it probably would be a little bit smaller than that. There are no surrounding storm systems that property drains into, though, so it's all treated on site. One of your standards for approval is looking at the effects of the rezone, and this includes looking at the effect of the amendment on subject property rights, and in this case, as it applies to the neighboring properties. And we do recognize that the character of the overall area is higher density residential land use and zoning, which we believe this to be consistent with. And there is no immediate impact, but we do recognize that if this is reconstructed, it would impact the neighboring properties in much the same way that some of these other projects do, which is an increase in noise, traffic, and utility needs. And we have heard that the existing collector road is adequate to address that. We also know that we can address on-site stormwater because we are currently oversized. And, of course, connect to city utilities and have those additional connections available. The effect on the property owner, if the proposed amendment is not granted, the property owner will struggle with financing the property. And if it was destroyed, would not be able to reconstruct this in accordance with the current use and his current investment in the property. And we do believe this to be a proactive solution that is consistent with what we see happening in this area. Your comprehensive plan, Northeast Prairie tomorrow, has one item that I would like to highlight, and that is that it recognizes that Northeast Prairie tomorrow allows for pockets of higher density housing where multifamily units are appropriate. So in summary, we believe this to be a transitioning area with higher density multifamily uses. We believe that this allows for a multifamily housing that will blend with the surrounding area, that is located on a major collector with adequate infrastructure. This does allow the owner to exercise similar property rights as others have, and to conventionally refinance and reconstruct, similar to the owner's current investment, and that this is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan.
Questions from council? We'll go with Woody then.
So when you say reconstruct, we're going to tear it down and do R17?
No, there's not a plan for that right now, but if there were, let's say, a fire and the structures were destroyed, with the zoning the way that it is, he would not be able to rebuild what he currently has.
Even though it was R8?
Yes, because the R8 does not allow for triplexes, fourplexes in the multifamily units that are there.
Okay, thanks.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Connie, I would like you to, if you could, explain to me, you said that the area is in transition several times, yet our comp plan says that it's stable, established. So how do you equate the two, the difference between the comp plan and your insistence that the area is transitioning?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it's that when you actually go out and you look within the area, and again, I provided some examples of where we see the higher density, and so it's just an area where we see this higher density level of existing structures that exist. Some of those are fairly new. The one example that I provided to you with the R17 zoning, I believe, was very recently constructed. In fact, I don't even think that it's occupied at this point in time. But again, just an area where it appears that there's a lot of transition that has occurred.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Connie? All right, thank you. I just had one other name on the list, and it was the applicant, Brenny Ross. Did not wish to testify, but he is obviously in favor of the project. So we would be looking for council action. Dan?
I have some questions for Mike to follow up.
Come on up, Mike. I will close the public testimony portion of that.
Mr. Bahari. If this is rezoned, does that remove the grandfather that they have for the current density?
They would just be legal conforming. If that's R17, they have the right amount of units.
So they would fit in properly. I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but if they rezoned, do our current codes say that that swale would have to remain, or could it be reconfigured in some other manner?
It may be able to be developed upon. It depends on the site plan they provide and if what engineering is going to require as far as water detention on the property.
Also, we updated our code recently that said, and Ms. Kruger mentioned that if the thing burned down, that he couldn't rebuild. I thought we amended our code so that if you had an older structure that had burned down, that you can rebuild on that foundation. Is that true?
That is true for single-family dwellings.
Okay.
We made that for single-family dwellings.
So it's only for SFD. Okay, that's all the questions I had.
I have a question while you're there.
Okay.
I looked in the minutes from P and Z, and there was no discussion. Do you remember any discussion there? At least I didn't see it in the minutes.
They did have a discussion on it. They talked about it, but I can't tell you verbatim what they said.
'Cause I saw somebody voted against it, and I was wondering, usually they're pretty verbal about why and when. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to stick you on the spot.
No, that's fine.
Any other council have questions for Mike? Amy?
Well, I can answer Woody's question for him. In the staff report, it says that Commissioner Lutrip said that he believes the request is premature and can't support the request.
Okay, thank you. Gotta dig deeper.
Any other questions for Mike? I think we're good. Thank you. Council's pleasure.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve ZC 4-20, changing the zoning property located at 3520 North 15th Street from R8 to R17, as requested by Northwest Solution Investment Group, and to adopt the findings from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to oppose this. I'm going to concur with what Mr. Lutrip said in the minutes, but also it's an increase in density in an area that is, it's stable, established. While, it would make it conforming, it's still grandfathered in the way it is, but they can add twice as many units with the rezone. And we should be looking only at the rezone and the fact that we would be having an R17 in the middle of an area that's predominantly R8. I know there's some other stuff, a variety in there, but again, it's kind of a domino thing for me. We just increase density here, there, we spot zone. It's kind of, I'd like to think that the comp plan is providing good guidance on this and that the area is stable, established. Thank you.
Any other discussion on that? Woody?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. Seems like we're working on a new comp plan. We're looking at affordable housing, where we have all these pressures to do this type of housing, I would think. If somebody has an opportunity to take something from an R8 to R17 to create twice as many places, I mean, out in my world, I'm hearing people can't find apartments, can't find a place to live, and when I think of this, I think that's the path we're going down to maybe help somebody rezone. You have to rezone. It's kind of infill is going to be kind of the same way. What can you put on that piece of dirt that's in the middle of a neighborhood? More than one house. You could put two or a duplex or something like that. That's what when I look at this, that's what I see is that's kind of the future. Some of these, 93, this place isn't even that old, but it's apartments is the way I would look at it. I just think that that's kind of where we're heading, and when somebody wants to take a chance and try and potentially be able to do that, I thought that's what we're trying to encourage. It's not like I want more dirt. Don't want more dirt in the city, but better housing, more opportunities for housing. Again, that's my perspective on it,
Well, I think it's there now. I think it's serving its purpose and providing housing at a higher density than what's around it. And I'm okay with that. I especially like the fact that it does have a large patch of green in it, which you don't see anywhere else. I know there's a park down the street, but it's, it's there, and just adding all that density to me, it's something that I want to see in the new comp plan, because we know that the density's coming, but I want to make sure we're careful, which is a word the comp plan uses many times, about where we put it. And right now, we're making a decision that goes against the comp plan because this is stable, established, and we are doubling the density in one small part of it, and I know there's other spots around there, but the other spots are around there because council in those times also went against the comp plan. So that's just my thought.
Good. Thank you.
Other discussion, Kiki?
My only, I've been trying to look at the map to see how this core housing and what might be I can't see where the zone of the core housing overlays where this property is. So I was just wondering if there would be some more latitude for this property owner after the core housing is adopted? And, or does the zone change still have to be R17 even after that? Can anyone address that?
I could address that quickly. For core housing, there's going to be a maximum size requirement, and this would be over that requirement. It's 4.26 acres. It wouldn't qualify for core housing because it'd be
Okay.
too large of a property.
Okay, so it's a geographical. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dan, I hear your argument. I think that it did go through planning and zoning, and they probably had all those same kind of discussions. For me, I'm kind of in line with what Woody's thinking, that affordable housing, we have to have it. We just talked about the 41% of Alice in our own community, and I don't think 32 units is going to overburden. And I guess when I saw the other surrounding properties that are similar, one is R17, I don't think that this will have too big of an impact in that area, so I'm going to support this for the affordable housing.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
No.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller.
No.
I think that passes 4-2. Is that right, Renata?
Sure is.
My math is right. And the next part of this?
I move to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill number 20-1017, once by title only.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Renata, read the title.
Council Bill number 20-1017, an ordinance amending the zoning act of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, known as ordinance number 1691, ordinances of the City of Coeur d'Alene, by changing the zoning of the following described property from R8 to R17. Lot 11, Fruitdale subdivision, commonly known as 3520 North 15th Street, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing for the publication of a summary of this ordinance and an effective date hereof.
Roll call, please.
Gookin?
Yeah.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Motion carried.
I move to adopt Council Bill number 20-1017.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Gookin?
No.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
No.
McEvers?
Yes.
Motion carried. We'll move on to our final piece of business tonight, which is another quasi judicial hearing. Any conflict of interest on any council member? Seeing none, we will have the staff report from Tammy Stroud. Welcome, Tammy.
Right, stand by here and let me try to get mine open.
Let's see if you can beat the record.
I know it. Make sure mine didn't get closed. Okay, mine may have been closed, so stand by. Okay, located it here. Thank you. All right, thank you for your patience. Good evening, Mayor and council members. So this is a zone change request from MH8 to R17 this evening. The property owner is Howard, LLC, and applicant Connie Kruger with Stonehenge Development and Government. Location of the property is on the west side of US Highway 95, south of West Snyder Avenue and east of North Howard Street, and the legal notice was published in the Coeur d'Alene Press on August 22nd, 2020. So this is the location map of the subject property outlined here in the red, and it is along Howard Street, and this is Snyder and Fruitland Lane here. And this is a close-up of the subject property outlined here in the red again along Howard Street. There's an existing plus or minus 700 square foot home and detached accessory structures currently located on the site. And the property has been used as a single-family residence for many years. It is relatively flat and is constrained by the presence of overhead utility lines that traverse over the front portion of the property at an angle here. And the applicant has indicated that they intend to demolish the existing single-family that's currently on the site with no definite development plans at this time. This is a bird's eye view of the subject property, and as you can see, the single-family and then the accessory structures that I've mentioned. There are 4 required findings that I'll go through on my presentation this evening. Finding B8, that this proposal is or is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan, and it is noted to be in the Fruitland area, which is transition. These areas are where the character of the neighborhood is in transition and should be developed with care. The street network, the number of building lots, and general land use are expected to change greatly within the planning period. And this is the approximate location of the subject property and the boundary of the Fruitland area within the transition area of the comp plan. So there are several comp plan policies and goals in your staff report on pages 5, 6, and 7, but I've included the one on natural environment, economic environment, home environment, and administrative environment. Finding B9, that the public facilities and utilities are or are not available and adequate for the proposed use. City staff from streets, engineering, water, fire, parks, and wastewater departments have reviewed the application request in regards to the public utilities and facilities, and each department has indicated that there are adequate public facilities and utilities available to serve the proposed zone change request, and there is no objection to the zone change request as proposed. Certain requirements will be triggered should the developer or the property owner decide to develop the property. As far as streets, the subject property is bordered by Howard Street to the west, and a sidewalk would be required along Howard Street at the time of any construction, and that is a comment provided by Chris Bosley, our city engineer. And there are additional comments, as I mentioned, on page 7 and 8 of your staff report. Finding B10, that the physical characteristics of the site do or do not make it suitable for the request at this time. The site is generally flat, and there are no topographical or physical constraints that would make the subject property unsuitable for this zone change request from MH8 to R17. And as I mentioned, the site is constrained by the presence of overhead utility lines that traverse over the front portion of the property at an angle. And because they are high voltage lines, they'll be required to follow guidance per the fire department, and those comments are noted in the staff report, and the applicant is aware. And I have included some site photos. This is looking east along Howard Street toward the subject property with the single family and some outbuildings. This is from the southeast corner of the property looking northeast at the neighboring property. This is looking northwest along Howard Street at neighboring properties. And this is looking south from the subject property along Howard Street at the neighbor's property. Finding B11, that the proposal would or would not adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood with regard to traffic, neighborhood character, and/or existing land uses. So the proposed zone change itself would not adversely affect the surrounding area with regard to traffic, as no traffic is generated from a zone change alone. The applicant has stated that there are no specific changes planned for this property, but rather the change would be for marketability. And so, however, if in the future the property is redeveloped to the maximum allowed density, traffic would almost certainly increase, but with only a half acre available, it would only be a small increase. And the Streets and Engineering Department has no objection to the zone change as proposed. And this is the zoning map, so this is the subject property outlined here. And just to the east of the property, the zoning is R17. And just to the south, this is R12. Looks like my box moved. And to the north, R17 with the PUD. And then we've got a little bit on the east of Fruitland Lane of C17. The proposed R17 zoning district is described as intended as a medium to high density residential district that permits a mix of housing type. It permits single-family, duplex, and multifamily housing. And a district is for establishment in those areas that are not suitable for lower density residential uses due to proximity to more intense types of land uses. And it's appropriate as a transition between low-density residential and commercial districts, or as a buffer between arterial streets and low-density residential districts. And this is a list of the principal uses that are permitted in the R17 zone, and on the list are single-family housing, duplex housing, and multifamily housing. And this is the zone change map. We've got a few zone changes surrounding this property. ZC 1191 SP, which is a multifamily project that's existing there now. And this is a zone change that happened in '94, and that was a zone from MH8 to R12. And then ZC 1287 was MH8 to R12. And then ZC 208 was MH8 to R17. And as far as land use, the subject property currently has the single family on it. And you have got multifamily noted here, and multifamily further to the south, and then multifamily to the north with a planned unit development, as well as a few single families. The decision point, City Council needs to provide a decision regarding the proposed zone change from MH8 to R17 on approximately 0.50 acres. And the City Council will need to consider this request and make the appropriate findings to approve, deny, or deny without prejudice. Any questions for me?
Council questions for Tammy? Dan?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Tammy, what's the lot size again?
It is
Total size, not just the development.
21,780 square feet,
And that's a what acre?
0.50.
And so, but it can only be developed, the back half of it can only be developed, so it's only developable to a certain...
This is they intend to remove the structures on the lot, so they could
No, I'm
develop.
referring to the overhead power lines.
Let's see, yes, the fire department did provide comments talking about that. And I'll read you Bobby Gonter's comments. Per the 2015 edition of the International Fire Code, structures shall not be constructed within the utility easement beneath the high-voltage transmission lines. Outdoor storage within the utility easement beneath the high-voltage transmission lines shall be limited to non-combustible material. So I'm not sure how far those utility lines encroach. That would be up to the developer to do his due diligence and find that out.
So I can assume that all the other, like all the houses that are jammed in there like crooked teeth, those are grandfathered under the utility lines.
I'm assuming so as well.
Oh, that's a good picture there. So the utility lines are kind of those faint gray lines that go kind of northwest, southeast.
That's correct.
So they can't build anything under there, or they can only store things that are non-combustible, which is
That's correct.
pretty much nothing. Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
If I could. That's one of my favorite areas. It feels like old Coeur d'Alene, little trailers and regular folks and ranchy stuff, but it feels county, back in there. It hasn't, and it's slowly now starting to to go, and I get it, but that'll be an interesting piece with that power line thing, you know. Wonder if a carport's considered combustible, you know?
I'm not sure. I believe
There's cars
there was a
in it.
project further to the south on Cherry Lane that you reviewed for a zone change maybe 1 or 2 years ago when they did a pocket housing project.
Right.
They also had to adhere to the requirement and set back away from those power lines. So it can be done. I think they just need to be aware of the requirements.
When they talk about combustible, are they talking about the structure that's underneath there? So if you built a steel building,
Yeah, or a metal roof.
is that not combustible?
I don't know.
I don't know. Shooting in the dark here.
There's no firemen here? Jeez.
Other questions for Tammy?
Thanks, Tam.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Tammy. So we'll open up the public testimony part of this, and we have Connie Kruger wishes to testify. Probably need to do the swearing in part again.
Sorry, Connie. Do you swear that this testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, hang on 1 second.
She gets the award for tonight.
Yeah, a lot of FaceTime.
Thank you
Only
for
get up the
hanging out.
fastest.
Oh, yeah, she did that first.
Yeah.
So Tammy's introduced a little bit about our project. As we have discussed, the owner of the property is Howard LLC, and this is owned by John McAdams. Mr. McAdams cannot be here tonight. He actually is working in Japan right now, and so it doesn't sound like he was able to join us online. So, but just to put that out there for you. And my name is Connie Kruger. We've talked a little bit about the location and the property information. This is located at 2926 North Howard Street. And this is actually located north of I-90 on the west side of US Highway 95. And this is near Lowe's, just to the north of Lowe's. And then it would be directly to the west of the grocery outlet. These are tracks 43 and 44. And as has been mentioned, this is a half an acre lot. And you can also see here the overhead utility lines coming across the property. Our request tonight is to rezone this from MH8 to R17. And MH8, it's very important to note, is a district intended for a moderate density for mobile homes at a density of 8 units per acre. And our proposal is to rezone this to R17, which is the medium to high density residential, and this would allow for a mixture of different housing types and not greater than 17 units per acre. There are 4 different things that we believe justify the amendment to your zoning map. And the first is the surrounding high-density zoning. The second is the available infrastructure. The third is the changing land uses that we see in this area. And we've talked a little bit about the rezones that have happened here. So we'll hit on each of these. So this is your zoning map, and this shows the zoning that we see in the general area. So again, we over in this area have 95. And the commercial properties, you see a portion of those that abut the west side of 95. And we also see in the greens, the R8s, in the blues, some of the MH8s. So there's quite a bit of that MH8 zoning in this area. And then we see this introduction of more of the R17s and the R17 PUDs. Much like with the last application, I did conduct a field assessment. In this case, there were quite a number of properties in the area, and they were actually primarily located right here between Howard and this road, which I can't see, Fruitland. So between Howard and Fruitland. So there were many other properties that actually had a multifamily component to them, but the majority of them were actually located between these two streets. So looking at the area, I found within those 2 road systems that we have about 11 different examples in the area of higher density housing that was occurring. And the average density for these came to 13.91 dwelling units per acre. And if you take a look at these, they range everything from multifamily apartments to manufactured housing and in a park system where you saw them kind of coming in a little lot layout with internal circulation aisles. So quite a different variety of housing in the area. This is in a transitioning area on a major collector, so we see the Campio map, and Howard here is also in this magenta color, so it's a major collector intended for a higher level of traffic. And we see that within the Appleway, Kathleen context, and of course the state highway system. Also noting that within close proximity to the property, we have 5 grocery stores, a variety of restaurants, home stores, specialty stores, and services such as hair and barber salons. So many different things that are within walking distance of the property, and you can see some of the labels there. The staff is pointing out the history of the rezones that have occurred in the area, so I think maybe getting a little bit more to the point of this being a transitioning area, I think that we definitely see that here with the history of rezones that have occurred. As to infrastructure, the primary access would be from North Howard, which is a major collector. And this has a 36-foot asphalt surface with curb, gutter, and stormwater systems that are in place. We have the surrounding roads that we've already talked about that are arterials and collectors. And within a half a mile to 3/4 of a mile, we have the US 95 and I-90 interchange and North Ramsey Road and I-90. So again, that ability to get on the road, the more major road systems, to be able to travel regionally to work and to enjoy different activities. We do believe that this will serve the surrounding traffic that we see occurring in the area and the general growth. And acknowledge that with development that there will be some requirements related to infrastructure, so this is a new approach or revision to our existing approach. The water, sewer, and hydrant systems are currently available to provide service to the property. And as we've heard from the departments here at the city, the infrastructure is available to serve the rezoned property and increased density. The effect of the amendment on the subject property and the property rights and the character of the neighboring properties. This is an area with a little bit higher density residential land uses, and this would be consistent with that, and it would impact the neighboring properties in much the same way, which would be an increase in noise, traffic, and utility needs. And this property owner does not desire to develop a manufactured home park in the area, which is the use that is allowed. And so, again, as we look into this area, we see it transitioning with some of these multifamily buildings happening directly adjacent to the north, some that exist and perhaps predate current zoning. So this would be compatible and similar to those. The comprehensive plan in Fruitland tomorrow envisions this as a commercial corridor with adjacent multifamily land uses, and that density will increase, and that there's an opportunity there to provide affordable housing. So in summary, we believe this is a transitioning area with the higher intensity highway and arterial commercial uses. It allows for multifamily housing that blends with the surrounding area. It's located on a major collector and allows this owner to exercise similar property rights as we see with some of the more recent development, and it's consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Council, questions for Connie? Dan, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. Hi, Connie.
Hi.
Tammy said that there were no distinct development plans for this. Are there? Is there a plan?
There are not.
So is this speculation then?
The current property owner did buy the land recently and has not indicated any plans to develop it at this point in time or to resell it. They've just contacted me and requested my assistance with a rezone.
Okay, but it just as decision maker up here, it puzzles me as to why bother at that point. I mean, if there's no compelling reason to do it, then why did he hire you? Why is he paying the money?
It's primarily because of the MH zoning. There's not a desire to place an MH project there. And then looking to the property to the east and the R17 zoning and the type of development that's occurring there.
Okay. So it is a single family on MH, which is allowed.
It is, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, I might just add that a lot of times it's usually step one, so you want to see if you can get there before you would spend any money on plans of doing a multifamily. So probably wise to say, okay, can I build multifamily here? I got to go through this process. Okay, I got this process done, then I'll spend money on the plans, rather than spending money on the plans and then you don't get the zoning.
So it puzzles me, and maybe you can offer some insight to this. So, because you deal with land and stuff, but it seems to me that and I'm sorry, I'm taking your time, but it seems to me those overhead power lines would be a major deterrent. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
You know, if you can build on the back half of the lot. If it's R17, you probably want to build 8 units on there, maybe an 8-plex. You can fit it probably on the back portion of the lot. That would just be green space.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I think there's enough. If you wanted to build an 8-plex there, you could build it on that parcel.
But even then, that would raise a question, and I know we're talking here, but then why go over R17? Wouldn't an R8, couldn't you just take an R8 and put the 8 on the back?
Couldn't do multifamily.
Oh, you can't do multifamily in R8?
Yeah, you got
Okay,
to
all right.
have R17.
Yeah, and having that site limitation actually facilitates the, or kind of derives a little bit more of the need for a multifamily structure to be placed there. And you can also place parking areas under overhead lines also, so there's some ability there to work with that. Yeah.
I think Tammy pointed out, if you follow those lines across, they cross quite a few different developments all the way down. It's kind of like a kitty-catty corner. It goes over a whole bunch of places.
Yeah, and I did look through the title, and I did not find any type of an easement for those, which is also interesting. Yeah.
That's how old they are.
Yeah.
Troy, I don't know if you recall, is that area in there an area where there's still a lot of septic up in that mobile home? That's what I'm thinking the transition is when you're going away from that MH8, which you have a lot of older mobile homes now, that there still is a lot of septic in that area.
I think you're correct, yes.
Yeah. That house could even be on septic, I'm just speculating on that.
I doubt it.
Any other questions for Connie? All right, thank you. So I don't see anyone else that wants to testify, so I will close the public testimony portion of this and look for council action.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Christine.
I'd make a motion to approve ZC 5-20, changing the zoning of property located at 2926 North Howard Street from MH8 to R17 as requested by Howard LLC, and to make the necessary findings in order.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'd like to express some concerns about this. And the density is interesting, given that the property is bisected by the power lines, and therefore, even though it could be an R17, there's not going to be 17 units on there, or whatever the number is they could put. But I do have a concern for this entire area. Because this is my secret back entrance into Fred Meyer. That's the way I go. And so it needs a lot of attention. It's just kind of haphazard now. But I do want to point out to council, we do a lot of talking about affordable housing. Mobile homes are affordable housing. This is a great big spot. If the map was still up there, you would see this huge swath of teal, or whatever that color is, that says this is mobile homes. This is, people can afford to live here. We may look down on them or other things, which is unfair, but this is affordable. And I would really appreciate it if in this area, I know that it's transitioning, and that's what the comp plan says, but still, we need to be really careful what we do with this area with the future, and not just go total sprawl, and consider that, every time we're going to do a rezone from MH8 or whatever the mobile home is, we are taking away affordable housing in the city. Just a thought that I will throw out there.
Any other discussion? Woody?
Along those lines, I looked at the same thing, but if you notice on the west side of Howard, they're real small lots. They're the mobile home lots, where this side of the street are much bigger parcels, and you can see them coming down Howard on the east side. I hear you. I love that area just because it's still kind of old and
Yeah.
funky. A lot of older folks. We do a lot of Meals on Wheels in that area. You know, people that are kind of older and in small trailer park type homes. I'm with you. Those look like they're all little individually owned pieces, and they're not very wide. I don't think you could even build a house on them.
No.
All right, roll call, please, Renata.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin.
I'm going to go no.
Motion carried. Next piece of this.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill 201018.
Second.
Motion and a second. Renata, if you could read the title, please.
Council Bill number 20-1018, an ordinance amending the zoning act of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, known as ordinance number 1691, ordinances of the City of Coeur d'Alene, by changing the zoning of the following described property from MH8 to R17 and placing certain conditions upon the property. Portions of Tract 43 and 44, Fruitlands Addition, commonly known as 2926 North Howard Street, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, and providing for a publication of a summary of this ordinance and an effective date hereof.
Roll call, please.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin.
Yeah.
English.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Move to adopt Council Bill 201018.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? One final roll call. Renata, thank you.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
No.
English.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Move that no being other business, that this meeting is adjourned.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, everyone.